Welcome to the Medical Cannabis Speaker and Investor Pitch Competition, where our featured cannabis industry leaders will educate and inform us about global health, science, technology, and investing opportunities. Then, the Investor Pitch Competition will have companies present their investment opportunity to our investor judges and the audience to be voted on. Be a part of the action, then stick around for a networking room after the webinar.
Okay, well, hello everyone. Hope you are all safe and healthy. My name is Jim Baudino, and I'll be your Master of Ceremonies for the Medical Cannabis Speaker and Investor Pitch Competition webinar. I would like to thank you for taking the time to join us to hear from an exciting and experienced lineup of medical cannabis industry speakers, investors, and companies who will be presenting during the Investor Pitch Competition. Now, the opportunity for medical cannabis is global, and today we are joined by an audience from across the globe. I'm joining you from Los Angeles, California, and we have participants from Europe, including France, Germany, and Ireland, Africa, Australia, India, Canada, Panama, Puerto Rico, Colombia, and even from the South Pacific Islands of New Caledonia, where it's not only Friday, it's also 5 a.m. So whether it's early or late, thank you for joining us. And please comment on where you're from in the chat. So I'm going to walk you through the schedule for today's event, along with some housekeeping items, and then we can jump right in. So as a note, I'll be providing the times in Pacific Standard Time. So we have speakers from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., followed by the Investor Pitch Competition from 1 p.m. to 2:55. At 2:55, we'll have voting by the investor judges, and you, the audience, will also get to vote for the company that you felt gave the best presentation. Closing announcements will be at 3:10 p.m. And to close out the day, we'll be hosting a Zoom room networking event so everyone can connect post-show from 3:15 to 4:30. Now, just a few housekeeping items to cover. First, if you want to submit a question, use the chat button on the bottom of your screen. Please make sure you are chatting with all panelists and attendees. After the final pitch competition presentation, you will be presented with a pop-up window where you'll be able to vote for your favorite presenting company. Now, you're currently in a Zoom webinar, and at 3:15, we'll switch to a Zoom room meeting where the networking event will happen. Here, you will have the opportunity to interact with speakers, judges, and the presenting companies. We will post this link on the screen during the closing announcements, and it can also be found in the chat room. And when you click on it, you'll be transferred from this webinar to the Zoom room, so don't click on it too early. And to our speakers, if there are any audience questions from during your presentation, I will bring those up toward the end of each talk. And if we don't end up getting to the Q&A questions, we will ask that each speaker jump into the Q&A section to answer those questions directly. Now, as a reminder, everyone will have access to all the speakers, judges, and presenting companies' bios, in addition to the investor pitch presentations from each company. Now, these can be found at the cannabisinvestingforum.com website. The URL will be placed into the chat. So with that, let's get started. Now, while many countries across the globe have been legalizing medical cannabis and an increasing amount of research is being conducted, in order to understand where we are today, it's important to know a little bit about how we got here. Now, the history of medical cannabis goes back to ancient times. Ancient physicians in many parts of the world mixed cannabis into medicines to treat pain and other ailments. The first references to cannabis as a medicinal plant date back to around 2800 BC in China, where the references were made to ma, the Chinese word for cannabis, noting that cannabis was a popular medicine that possessed both yin and yang. By about the 8th century, cannabis was used for medicinal purposes in China, Egypt, Greece, India, and the Middle East, and possibly parts of Europe as well. In the 19th century, cannabis was introduced for therapeutic uses in Western medicine. Irish physician William O'Shaughnessy is credited with bringing cannabis to the West, conducting studies on animals in the 1830s. At the time, it was used in cannabis tinctures where it was infused in alcohol. And cannabis quickly became the second most widely used ingredient in pharmacies in the United States and Europe until early 20th century. Cannabis extracts were used medically for stomach pains and nausea, originally associated with cholera, but it was used for a variety of other ailments from hysteria to corns on the feet. Now, in the early 1940s, CBD and THC were first extracted from cannabis. 20 years later, their structures were identified by Professor Raphael Mechoulam, In 1965, Professor Meshulam's lab synthesized both compounds, and since then, more than 100 cannabinoids have been cataloged. Now, soon after the advances from the Meshulam lab, cannabinoid research took off, as did the popularity of marijuana as a recreational drug. In the 1970s, synthetic THC was created to be administered as the drug Marinol. And several animal studies in the early 1970s showed that CBD had activity against epilepsy. And in 1980, a small clinical trial showed a reduction in seizure frequency in patients with epilepsy who were taking CBD. In 1990, Miles Herkenham, senior investigator at the National Institute of Mental Health, and his research team discovered the cannabinoid receptor system. Now, in 1996, California became the first US state to legalize medical cannabis. Since then, over 30 more states and countries across the globe have legalized medical cannabis. Another big moment, in 2018, the US FDA approved the first marijuana-based drug, Epidiolex, or CBD, for the treatment of epileptic seizures. And then also in 2018, the US Farm Bill was passed, legalizing industrial hemp, opening doors for further research. And today, cannabis is deemed as been essential by the US federal government, and we can only hope that full legalization is soon to come. So now that you know a little bit more about the history, I wanted to share a little bit about who I am and how I got here. So I've been in the cannabis industry for about 5 years now, and one thing that I've learned quickly while getting in is that everyone has a story. Whether it was the first time that you smoked or how your friend used cannabis in order to eat while getting through cancer, cannabis has played a role in so many people's lives. Now, I transitioned into the cannabis industry from Toyota North America, where I spent 10 years working on a variety of marketing and business development leadership roles after business school. Toyota was moving their North American headquarters to Texas at the time, and I wasn't moving. And so a longtime business acquaintance who happened to be business partners with Snoop Dogg was creating a global media platform called Mary Jane and asked me to come on board to help build the company. Now, while most people get something like a new sports car for the midlife crisis, I decided to jump headfirst in the federally illegal cannabis industry. But before I transitioned, I did my research, a lot of research. And what solidified the move for me were the people I met, from Marines that had gotten off opioids and other pharmaceuticals because of cannabis, to moms who had to fight to get medicine for their children with cancer and epilepsy, and to those who have been imprisoned by cannabis crimes. Those stories were extremely powerful, and being able to build a media company to raise awareness of these and other stories to educate the mainstream, that became my mission. Now, I was one of the first of Fortune 100 companies to jump ship and join the cannabis industry. You know, the Toyota executives, they thought I was crazy, but after I shared my research and educated them on the cannabis plant, they really understood why I was making the move. Now, I've had the opportunity to see the ins and outs of hundreds of cannabis brands and build strategic partnerships with mainstream brands like Jack in the Box, Viacom, Vice, Postmates, and Live Nation, and present about cannabis at major universities like and events like South by Southwest and World's Conference. And besides investing in and advising cannabis companies, you know, I'm a partner in Fiorello Agency, which is a brand incubator and boutique creative and strategic communications agency focused on supporting early stage, high growth businesses in cannabis and other emerging markets. So a little bit about me, and now we've got a great lineup of speakers for you, covering topics from COVID's impact on the industry to strategies to mitigate risk, along with Cheech Marin, who will be doing a little fireside chat with at about 12:30. So now I would like to introduce the first speaker, Emily Paxhia. Emily is the co-founder and managing partner of Poseidon Asset Management. Emily has reviewed thousands of companies in the cannabis industry and has worked with founders in many capacities. She has helped to shape founders' pitch preparation. Their go-to-market strategies, product launches, and has advised on day-to-day business operations. Emily has held board seats for multiple portfolio companies and participates as an advisor to multiple teams. Extremely active in investment, decision-making, and ongoing investment oversight processes, she works closely with her partners to create meaningful deal structures, ensuring that proper governance is carried out at the company level. Furthermore, Emily has dedicated time and energy to supporting policy groups and has served on the board of directors of the Marijuana Policy Project. She also currently serves on the board of Athletes for Care and the Initiative. Welcome, Emily. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Jim, and thank you to Brad for putting this all together. I know it's a lot of work to wrangle all of us folks to share about our perspectives of the industry. I think this is going to be a terrific day, and I'm excited for all the companies that are lined up to be pitching later too. It's quite a great lineup. So Jim, thank you for that very generous introduction. Just a few things. Why isn't this? Ah, there we go. Just a few things about Poseidon. I'm the co-founder and managing partner of Poseidon alongside my brother, Morgan, who will be moderating the discussion points later on today. So you'll get a bit of Poseidon today. Poseidon is an investment firm that has been in the industry for 7 years. We put the fund together in 2013, our first fund. And since then, we've got 2 funds investing entirely in the cannabis industry and 5 syndicated investment vehicles. Just to do an overview of the snapshot of the industry, we've been very excited to see how this industry has grown since we got into it. And a lot of what drove us into the space was very much about the medical piece of cannabis, which is what we're here today to talk about. I think sometimes the medical aspects of cannabis get a little bit drowned out by all of the hype around adult use, but it's really at the core of how cannabis progressed forward and how we saw legalization take shape. And especially as Jim was mentioning with what happened in California with the caregivers and really stepping in, especially during the AIDS epidemic, and finding ways to have these alternative treatment sources or resources that people could feel better while they were going through their various treatments. Since we got into the industry, Colorado was the first really adult use state to turn on, but they'd had a medical program and continued to do so. And since then, we've now got 11 adult use states, over 33 medical states, and more coming online in the ballot initiative in the fall. We've also seen multiple states unlock. In the first year of running our fund, Canada had their medical program open and live, and that was actually really tremendous to see how that federal government embraced getting cannabis into the hands, especially of veterans who are suffering with PTSD. So it was something that was really remarkable to witness as this has been unfolding all of these years. So there's still a tremendous amount of opportunity, and I'll be talking about that at the end, but a little bit about when Morgan and I got into the space was we lost both of our parents to cancer, actually, and it was a hospice nurse that had mentioned it back in 1996, if you can believe that, in New York State about, maybe try smoking a little pot. It was a very off-the-cuff comment. It was something that I think speaks highly of hospice care workers because they are so focused on the patients and not so much on pushing an agenda. And just that knowledge that so many of the medications that people are forced to take throughout their treatment process actually creates other side effects. And so then it creates this kind of virtuous negative cycle of ways that pharmaceuticals play into your life. So for us, that kind of quote unquote seed had been planted around cannabis. And when we got into it, our thesis was investing into medical cannabis would make society better. And we believed that shifting the perceptions around this would just really help to drive the opportunity space from an investment standpoint. So it's quite a synergistic relationship there. That's just a bit about our firm. So Poseidon has invested across the world, really, and largely our reach into other countries has been very focused on medical cannabis. As you can see, we've invested across at least 18 legal states. This probably can be updated now because some of our multi-state operators or MSOs have expanded. We were early investors into Canada before those operators went public. Like, I still remember, I have an email from Bruce Linton back when Canopy was actually called Tweed, for those who were around back then, in a purely medical market from a federally legal standpoint. But so we've invested across the United States, and I'll talk about what that looks like from medical all the way through to lifestyle. We've invested into Mexico, Colombia, Spain, Portugal, and Germany, and those LATAM investments are very much medical. So it does matter across the globe how we think about it in terms of the opportunities from medical all the way over to lifestyle aspects of cannabis. And it is really amazing to see how the different regions of the world really kind of approach these different markets. So very fascinating. So the way we view cannabis at Poseidon and the way we've been talking about it for years is that cannabis is a spectrum. It's not a clear-cut line from medical to adult use. We think about it as kind of starting at lifestyle and then going through this massive intersection of wellness and then all the way over to the very strict definition of medical and pharmaceutical. So I've put up here kind of some example companies to help ground thinking around this. So, and these are companies that we've invested into, and so how we've been thinking about it across the spectrum. So many of you are probably familiar with the company Pax. It's a device company that's actually got reach throughout the world because their devices are not necessarily tied to the plant. And then you've got in the middle here a lot of these companies that are retailers or cultivators or processors within the markets. And these companies, some of them, the reason they're sitting in that wellness middle section is that they are adult use in nature and they also are in medical markets, and then they have a wide array of products that could sit right in that wellness spectrum. And when I'm talking about wellness, I'm talking about things that improve the quality of your life through consuming cannabis. So it's not necessarily that you have a specific affliction, it's that you're using cannabis to augment how you're feeling from a day-to-day perspective. So this may be in sleeping, it may be helping in anti-inflammation if you're somebody who's an athlete or likes to work out. It may be something around, it reduces your anxiety as you're working through the day, and it just makes you feel better. So I would say that's the middle section. And the way I think about the difference between lifestyle and wellness is that lifestyle has associations with different types of events, like maybe you're going to a music event or you're going to watch a movie or you're having a social occasion. Wellness is more of an everyday kind of approach to consuming cannabis in different formats like tinctures or droplets or various form factors, patches. And then you have all the way over to the right on the medical/pharmaceutical side. And this is where we start to think about people doing clinical trials. They're looking for GMP EU certification. So you have something like Clever Leaves in Colombia that's producing cannabis and thinking about implementing it into the GMP supply chain globally. You have Landsteiner Scientific out of Mexico, and they're looking at, they've got proprietary formulations around cannabinoid delivery systems that they're implementing into form factors that are very pharmaceutical in nature with specific protocols around that. And yes, the Mexico market has not turned on yet, but they're preparing for the moment and doing the research with the universities around that. And then you have Respira, which is a new way of consuming without heating the product so that you can inhale or ingest cannabis without having the irritant or the changing of the molecules of heating it. So there's many ways to think about it. And I think it's really important because the timeline around these things is very different. Like lifestyle, wellness, this is all happening now. Pharma is something I think is going to have a longer tail in this industry. Just to quickly touch on CBD, because it sits in its own unique space, especially as it happens to exist with the FDA. Yeah, and on the previous slide, you can see I have GW Pharmaceuticals, which they do have the FDA approval around their Epidiolex product, which is now in the United States. And so that was really a groundbreaking step in the industry. But that is related to CBD. And so CBD sits in this interesting space. We're all waiting to understand what's going to go on with the FDA around CBD and what will continue to be kosher in our market. But I call it out as separate because it is the way it's considered right now or contemplated is it comes more from the hemp plant. So you have to make sure you're under a certain level of THC. And it's just kind of a completely different consideration in terms of the entire cannabis plant, especially when you introduce THC, even in the like THCA, which is not necessarily psychoactive and has many tremendous benefits, but is not yet acceptable through federal reach. So another way that we think about cannabis and medical cannabis is through the technology that supports it. And so these are just some example companies. I think that the important thing is that we're starting to finally see massive research that's been taking place over the years, but not yet in the United States. But what we do have is access to consumer data. There's something like Headset. And so that allows you to really understand the consumer trends, and you can start to see how different relationships to different compounds of the plant, different ratios of THC to CBD, different form factors might be taking place. And that's really helpful when you're contemplating where you sit in that spectrum. You have something like Confident Cannabis that's helping, they have a lab inventory management system. So this is all very critical from a medical standpoint, because if you're taking cannabis as a resource for medical or wellness, you want to make sure that it doesn't have pesticides in it. You want to make sure you understand the compounds and the ratios of THC to CBD in the plant or the other cannabinoids and various things like that. And then you have like Flow Hub and Meadow that are helping to make sure the track and trace of the cannabis is being contemplated through the entire supply chain. So again, you're sure that you're getting access to legal regulated cannabis, which is really important if you're somebody who's participating from a wellness or medical standpoint. So just to think about where we are from an investment perspective on cannabis and how this ties to medical, is that there's this Gartner hype cycle, which if you look it up, it's been related to any emerging market, broadly speaking. Specifically, tech has been a great area. And it really has to do with how the markets ebb and flow in terms of capital flowing into them. And for the most part, we've seen capital come in very quickly. There's been a lot of hype around it, which is aptly named. And then the capital will retreat from the industry if it feels like it's been treated poorly by certain operators, or if maybe the regulations are starting to become unclear. When it comes to the medical consideration around cannabis, it creates some stability when you think about it for investors, because medical cannabis, first of all, tends to pull better across the world by different constituents in terms of acceptability and openness to having legal markets around medical cannabis. So it's a very important aspect of this, because this is a lot of how people get comfortable with cannabis as a part of our lives. And that is how we are going to move towards this important participation of institutional capital. There are funds like ours in the industry, but we haven't yet seen the massive pools of institutional capital unlock. This will largely be driven by legislation, but I think that we cannot underestimate, and I need to underscore the importance that we always remember that the roots of the cannabis movement is about medical access to something that can really improve people who are going through difficult treatments or certain ailments, and that it can also just be an overall wellness and life improvement standpoint. So for anybody on the call who's looking at this from an investment standpoint, you can see we have a little arrow on there that shows where we think we are today. And we do think that there's a little bit more pain ahead, but we do think that when some of these legislative moments happen coming up, that institutional capital will come in. And importantly, that will help to support additional research around cannabis. So that kind of brings me through to just some key questions going forward for medical cannabis. And it's things that we are always contemplating as we're considering what the potential size of the market, the pace of the growth of the market, and where we'll end up with our exiting and driving returns for our investors. So thinking about what is the potential role of the FDA, you know, we've seen how this has played out a little bit with CBD. It's kind of been a stop-start process. There is some concern around potentially this conversation, and Joe Biden has brought it up about rescheduling cannabis. We have to be very careful about that, because if it gets rescheduled and goes under the purview of the FDA, there's a lot of other things we have to consider as an industry. So many of us are very much pro descheduling, or coming up with maybe a very, very specific schedule or designation for cannabis that wouldn't necessarily drive it there. Very interested to watch how trade will continue between countries. Is it important that it's GMP certified? That will be interesting from a medical standpoint. What will happen with research in the US? Very curious about how this will work out with insurance too. I mean, Epidiolex is now, insurance carriers are covering that, and it's been very helpful for those who are using that resource, but we'll have to see what happens next. And then what is the timeline before big pharma actually starts to participate, and maybe are they already? And so these are a couple of things that we really think about from the medical standpoint of cannabis going forward. But that takes me through to the end so that we can get to some Q&A. So I'll let Jim jump in there.
All right. If anyone has Q&A, please put them in the chat. What are your thoughts on what the timing is of being descheduled, and how this election is going to currently change maybe some of the laws?
Oh man.
I know, loaded question.
A loaded question. Okay, so I think we're a ways off from that, frankly. I think we could see some different things happening at the federal level, especially around banking, and that's what I'm really hopeful for. We tend to be a little bit less, we kind of sit on the side of skepticism in terms of things that will happen at the federal level very quickly. I do think that this potential and probable economic downturn that we're frankly already in will drive some movement on that because of the tax revenue that can be generated further from this industry if it's unlocked and allowed to run more efficiently with banking and all of these other resources. Regarding the election, I think that the industry will fare better on the back end of the election just for the fact that it will remove the question marks around who's president. The current president has kind of left us alone, and that's been great. I think most of the industry would prefer to be left alone and let us just continue to push forward. Joe Biden has an interesting take on the issue. I wish it was a little bit more progressive. I think it's a little bit backwards looking, and I think he could gain some additional perspective by engaging the industry and learning a bit more about it. But we'll take it anyway. It seems like he is listening to some of his Democratic counterparts, but we'll have to see where it nets out. I mean, as of today, I mean, I'm frankly worried about a constitutional crisis based on some of the tweets that happened in the last 24 hours and what's going to happen in this election period. But the good news is that it seems like no matter what goes on, people are buying cannabis, and our industry is continuing to push forward. Pandemic aside, everything aside, cannabis seems to continue to flourish.
Great. Well, thank you for that. I know there's questions in the Q&A. Maybe Emily, if you could go in and answer those. We need to get to the next presenter, but thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate the insights. Look forward for catching up, hopefully at the reception.
Thank you.
All right, so our next speaker is no stranger to medical cannabis. David Hess is president and co-founder of Tress Capital, and as a two-time cancer survivor, David was introduced to the vast benefits of medical cannabis while undergoing cancer treatments in 2001 and again in 2003. David has since dedicated himself to furthering research, awareness, and business opportunities in the expanding cannabis industry. In 2013, David partnered with Asher Trophy to establish Tress Capital, the cannabis industry's go-to source for private capital, solutions, and strategic support. Tress Capital is a strategic private investment firm embedded at the core of the global cannabis sector, originating and managing investments for high net worth, family office, and institutional investors. Tress has a track record of successful industry investment and works closely with its companies and the industry, providing active value add support. With a unique industry network, unparalleled deal flow, an experienced team with in-house niche expertise, Tress Capital is the go-to for sophisticated investors seeking competence. Tress Solutions provides M&A advisory, strategy, business development, and operational support to sector companies. So welcome, David. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you, Jim, for the intro. Emily, that was fantastic. I'm a big fan of Poseidon. And thank you, Brad Turner, for producing another wonderful event today. And really, I'm looking forward to all the presentations and all the great opportunities we're going to see in a bit. As Jim mentioned, my name is David Hess. I am the president and co-founder of Tress Capital. Tress Capital is a strategic private investment firm. We are embedded at the core of the global cannabis sector. And what we do is we originate and manage investments for high net worth, family office, and institutional investors. We've been investing strictly in the cannabis industry for about a decade now. And as you mentioned, we do have a track record of successful industry investment and do work closely with most of our portfolio companies on a day-to-day basis and the industry as a whole, and really adding that active value add support. The Tress portfolio includes industry leaders such as Headset, Tilt by way of Baker Technologies, SC Labs, Cannabis Now, Grownetics, Northbud Farms, Infusion Biosciences, Waste Tracker, and ICANN. And as you mentioned, Jim, I am no stranger to medical cannabis, and today I'd like to share a little bit of my story. I was introduced to the vast benefits of medical cannabis while undergoing cancer treatments at Sloan Kettering in 2001 and again in 2003. But I'm originally from Los Angeles. I'm in New York now, but originally from Los Angeles, where I was actually gathering signatures, believe it or not, for Prop 215 as a part-time job during my senior year in high school. I mean, how cool is that, right? And then I had family and friends jump on the opportunity once it passed. Unfortunately for myself, I was diagnosed with synovial sarcoma in 2000. And so, although I did have a front row seat to the legacy cannabis industry, so to speak, I had to relocate to New York and participate on the sidelines for a bit. And the reason I went to New York is the oncologists at Sloan Kettering were the only oncologists that were giving me any opportunity at survival. And so off to New York I went. I was able to medicate with cannabis throughout my first bout with chemo and radiation. And really that kept my spirits up as well as my appetite. However, within 2 years, I had a local recurrence. And due to the treatments on the second bout with cancer, I had to spend the year as an inpatient in New York City at Sloan Kettering. And there I was 22. I was being treated on a pediatric floor for some of the medical professionals on the webinar today. They might understand that synovial sarcoma is traditionally seen amongst pediatrics. And so, as I mentioned, I'm on a pediatric floor as a 22-year-old. And, I had friends early on coming by, friends and families, since, as I mentioned, being from LA, there was absolutely no stigma for us. And they were sneaking me out of my room at Sloan Kettering and, taking me downstairs. And I had no problem medicating, traditionally with cannabis. The problem became about my second round in, I became bedridden and could no longer medicate with cannabis. I was miserable. I started to feel the chemo begin to kill me, and I wanted to quit. I was given an article. You had mentioned Marinol earlier. Well, I was given an article, I believe it was in Time magazine, on Marinol. And I remember almost defiantly handing it to my oncologist and said, here, give me a prescription for Marinol and I'll stick around. Otherwise, send me home and let me medicate with cannabis the traditional way and let me feel good as I make my exit. And believe it or not, this is Sloan Kettering, right? This is a major cancer hospital and research center. And this was the chairman of oncology at Sloan Kettering. That was my oncologist. And I was his first patient that he was prescribing Marinol to. And I remember within the first hour to 2 hours of me taking Marinol, within the first hour or two of me being prescribed Marinol, there I was laughing with my nurses, asking my friends to come watch Monday Night Football with me and making sure they bring the wings, right? I wasn't eating for months. And there I was acting and feeling like my old self, watching movies and eating munchies and from a pill, right? And again, I had access to the legacy cannabis industry in California. And so, I understood what the cannabis laws were, but this was a major paradigm shift for me personally. And I wanted to understand all I could about medical cannabis, right? Again, I was 22 on a pediatric floor. My roommates at Sloan Kettering were 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds. And, I'm watching football and movies, thank you, Cheech, right? I'm watching Cheech and Chong and I'm loving life. And there I was, I'm a cancer patient and my roommates were I can't even begin to reimagine what it was like at night there. It was really awful. And I wanted to learn as much as I could about cannabis. And could it help children, right? I wanted to learn everything I could and found out that There's actually an endocannabinoid system in each and every one of us. I found out about terpenes, THC, CBD, CBN, CBG, THC, THCA, and everything in between. And I learned that there were actually clinical trials in Israel going on since '96 with a government that was being proactive in Israel towards medical cannabis. And again, I was absorbing every ounce of data and information that I could. I did have access to a lot of those practitioners in Israel and scientists studying it in Israel, and would call them on a weekly, monthly basis, and again, just try and learn as much as I could. Fast forward a bit to 2010, 6 medical licenses were awarded in New Jersey, right? And I still had to be in New York, which I am today, to be close to Sloan Kettering. But luckily for me, the cultivation manager was a friend, and he heard me talking about legitimizing the credibility of cannabis for years at that point, and calls me one day and says, "Dave, this is your chance." And I jumped on it. You know, there was a need for capital and operations, and I helped syndicate that deal. And once that project was off the ground, I started to hear about cannabis trade shows, right? This is back in 2011, 2012, when some of the trade shows were just getting off the ground, and really just joined every association I could that involved cannabis, and really started to grow with the nucleus of the industry. And after several of the trade shows, and really building out my network beyond California and several diligence trips, I realized 2 things. I realized, number one, if I'm going to invest other people's money, aside from my own and my family's capital, that we had to, and especially if we're going to monitor these entrepreneurs and these opportunities and report back to the investors, I knew I had to bring in a partner with actual financial experience, a background from Wall Street. And my vision was that our firm would be as credible as any other investment firm for any other industry. And I also realized that there was an opportunity to support the infrastructure of this new industry, what we always called the legs of the cannabis industry. And so in 2013, I did just that. I partnered with Asher Trophy, an experienced fiduciary and trader on Wall Street, who was operating in equity portfolios for over a decade at the time. And we became Tress. We became one of the cannabis industry's go-to sources for private capital and solutions and strategic support, both for investors and for the entrepreneurs themselves. Today, in 2020, we have 9 industry leaders, as I mentioned, in the portfolio. SC Labs, again, Headset, Tilt, Cannabis Now, Grownetics, Northbud Farms, Infusion Biosciences, Waste Tracker, ICANN, and our diversification strategy has proven successful, right? In 2020, during these rocky times, it's nice, right? Sure, cannabis is an essential business. However, listing our portfolio companies, our media company, Cannabis Now, prints magazines, and excuse me, and widely distributed in Barnes & Noble, Hudson News, at every airport. And sure enough, right, due to the quarantine and flights being down, there was absolutely no reason to continue printing a magazine. And unfortunately, we have a Cannabis Now CBD wellness store in Los Angeles that we opened about a year ago. And on May 30th, the first day of the protests for George Floyd, unfortunately, there were some rioters at the tail end of that, as everybody's well aware of. And unfortunately, we fell victim to some of those rioters, and our store was looted on the 30th. And so we're having to help them pivot to e-commerce and licensing opportunities, and to actually start better monetizing the 4 million plus social media followers that they have. We also made an investment in international live networking trade show event that I'm sure many of our international audience is aware of, called Canatech. And I would have never have guessed at our last gathering in Cape Town in South Africa in November that we wouldn't be reconnecting with the international cannabis community come April in Tel Aviv, But sure enough, COVID hit us, and Canatech has also had to pivot to an all digital platform. That said, I am very optimistic. Okay, there are distressed opportunities we are seeing all the time in cannabis today with valuations that were really unheard of 6 to 12 months ago. We're also seeing great companies begin to mature, learning to scale efficiently, reaching profitability or getting close to it. And there are some really great growth equity opportunities to invest in today. A nice bonus to cannabis investing is that while investors are waiting for our outsized financial returns, our investments can have a measurable impact today. For impact investors, this is a very exciting industry to be part of right now. And I want to finish by encouraging the investors and the entrepreneurs on today's webinar, Seeking Capital, to do your diligence on one another. Make sure you are the right fit for each other. Make sure you're going to investors that invest in you and that are not going to leave you when times get tough. If you're raising capital and don't have access to that network of active cannabis investors, please reach out to us or to some of the investors that you find on the webinar today. We can help. If you are an investor, now more than ever is the time to link up with other investors who specialize in the cannabis industry and co-invest with us in an SPV. That's fine, but don't go at it alone. And again, as you mentioned earlier, Tress Solutions provides M&A advisory, strategy, business development, and other operational support. You can find my information and all of Tress's information on our website at tresscapital.com, or if you're an entrepreneur in the space and seek advisory or strategy, biz dev, go to Tress, TRESS.io, and Tress Solutions will be able to assist. And of course, you can go directly to the Cannabis Investing Forums site and find all of our information as well. So again, thank you, Brad. Thank you, Jim. Thank you to all the entrepreneurs. Thank you all to the investors for really making my dream a reality of a cannabis economy, of a cannabis industry where kids and adults can benefit from cannabis. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. And thank you for sharing that powerful story. And that's why we're here.
Yep.
And I think there's a lot more to come. But thanks again. And there are questions in the Q&A section. So panelists, if you please take a look, answer those as you can. Again, David, thank you for sharing. So next up, we have Elaine Richard. She's the CEO and founder of MyCureAll. Now, Ms. Richard is a highly seasoned pharmacist and healthcare professional that has held leadership roles in 3 Fortune 500 companies that include Rite Aid, Walgreens, and CVS Caremark, just small companies. Ms. Richard is a graduate of Long Island University School of Pharmacy and has been a licensed pharmacist in New Jersey and Florida for over 20 years. Ms. Richard wants to make our society a better place, and her goal is to decrease opioid overdoses, decrease deaths from suicides and overdoses, reunite families suffering due to drug addiction, and help patients achieve the most effective pain control. Ms. Richard is dedicated to providing quality patient care and ensuring improved clinical outcomes. In her 20+ years as a pharmacist, she has seen tens of thousands of patients for dozens of different conditions.
What is he reading?
As a pharmacist, she has always strived to help patients make their lives happier, healthier, and ease their burdens. Addiction is a tough illness, and she feels honored to help patients on their road to recovery. Now, at MyCureAll, her mission is to optimize innovation to treat pain properly while preventing addiction at its core and ensure improved clinical outcomes. Welcome, Elaine. Glad you could join us.
Jim, well, thank you so much for this really wonderful introduction. I really appreciate it. I am honored to be here. Thank you, Brad, for organizing this. And I am actually very glad that I'm following Emily and David because I will be talking about medical part of cannabis as well. So hopefully, it's a nice actually follow-up for me. So hello, my name is Elaine Richard. I am a founder and CEO of the company called MyCureAll. Our company built an ecosystem to navigate the medicinal cannabis world, the MyCureAll app. Our team of pharmacists, social workers, and substance abuse and mental health professionals brings pharmaceutical precision and extensive experience to the field of medical cannabis. So I've been a pharmacist at this point for over 25 years. I've worked for different companies. I've owned my own stores over a period of time as well in the beginning of my career. What brought me to the cannabis world several years ago was my interest in alleviating the scourge of the opioid epidemic. And what I've noticed is how much cannabis can actually be utilized as part of the MAT treatment in opioid reduction therapy. And that's kind of how my interest started several years ago. And I became the first full-time employee of my company as of June 1st of last year, 2019, and started researching medical protocols and building our app. So one of the things that our app, my web app, provides is a platform for targeted cannabis recommendations for strains, dosage forms, and ratios and strength to treat specific medical conditions and lower healthcare costs. So the reason we created the app, as I mentioned, was from the desire really to fight that opioid epidemic and to provide protocols for a far more superior medical treatment option, which is cannabis, with far less side effects and no addiction potential. But other than medical protocols, what else can a platform like ours help you with? What exactly does it mean to be a patient, a provider, or a dispensary, or even an insurer on our platform? So what I would like to talk about today is about drug interactions, side effects, synergistic activity of cannabis, and part of my talk will be about the cannabis, will be about the opioid epidemic, because this is what our app actually provides. It provides that platform of cannabis protocols for different medical conditions, and as well as I will be touching base on some microdosing as well. So many drug interactions are caused due to a medication acting as an enzyme inhibitor or an enzyme inducer. For example, most everyone on this call is aware that eating grapefruit or drinking grapefruit juice can affect some of your medication. In most cases, it increases the level of the medicine in your blood. This can increase the risk of side effects or alter the effects of medicine that medicine has. The enzyme inhibitor slows the metabolism of another drug, which can cause higher drug levels and side effects of the drug that is affected. And an enzyme inducer, which in this case would be THC, speeds up the metabolism of another drug, making it less effective or even causing withdrawal symptoms in certain cases. So obviously cannabis is no different. Cannabis is still, even though it's a natural product, cannabis is still cause side effects. So drugs that are metabolized and eliminated by enzymes in the liver, they're called a cytochrome P450 family of enzymes. Because both THC and CBD are metabolized by those enzymes, cannabis is involved in many drug interactions. So CBD, first and foremost, is a strong inhibitor of all of those cytochrome P450 family of enzymes. And because the cytochrome P450 family of enzymes involved with metabolism of about 50% of all drugs, CBD may increase levels of a lot of drugs. So first and foremost, I want to mention a Z-Pak. So been a lot in the news lately, along with Plaquenil or hydroxychloroquine. So actually the dosing of Z-Pak will be increased naturally in your body if you're ingesting cannabis. Erythromycin would be another antibiotic as an example. A lot of blood pressure medications from the family of calcium channel blockers, from the family of beta blockers, atenolol, verapamil, diltiazem, will be increased with the usage of cannabis. Benzodiazepines that are used to treat PTSD, anxiety, sleep disorders, such as lorazepam, diazepam, clonazepam, alprazolam. Some of the erectile dysfunction drugs will actually, due to the ingestion of cannabis, the patient will actually have a prolonged erection. So Viagra, Cialis, Stendrol, Levitra are all part of those drugs. Some of the cholesterol medications, which are very common, such as Zocor and Lipitor, and in this case, cannabis utilization with Zocor and Lipitor if not monitored, can actually damage your liver. Family of the cytochrome P450 enzymes also metabolizes many antidepressants. So CBD specifically may actually increase levels of these drugs in your body. So SSRIs such as Celexa, Prozac, Lexapro, Paxhia, and many others. And that brings me to opioids. So levels of opioids such as oxycodone, codeine, hydrocodone, morphine, tramadol increase when CBD or cannabis are introduced. The interesting thing about this is that it proves that endocannabinoid system works in conjunction with opioid receptor sites. The vaporized cannabis increasing the pain-reducing analgesic effect of opioids without altering the plasma level of the opioid. So a study was performed in 2018. It was a non-control open label study on 274 participants. It was conducted by Beth Wise and Adrienne P. Wilson Poe, and it was later published in US National Library of Medicine. And it clearly found that medicinal cannabis reduces the consumption of opioids. So the current research, and I'm sure everybody on this call is aware, the current research generally supports the use of medical cannabis as an adjunct or additive to opioid substitutes. Furthermore, patients prefer cannabinoids to opioids, and the same patients are showing a 40 to 60% reduction in opioid abuse for pain with fewer side effects from the medication. They're showing improved cognitive function, better quality of life with cannabis instead of opioids. Despite that vast array of cannabis products and administration routes used by patients in state with medical cannabis laws, cannabis has been consistently shown to reduce that opioid dose needed to achieve desirable pain relief. In further reviewed research, we can see the benefits of supplementary use to address traditional medication-assisted treatment in intervening with administration of cannabis and showing findings that produce synergistic analgesia. So cannabis and opioids have this great synergistic drug interactions, have this great synergistic effect. So the research that I'm referring to has concluded that clinical data that analgesic synergy produced by co-administered cannabis and opioids will actually will show greater pain reduction with clients that are receiving either opioids or cannabis. So this strategy could have significant impact on opioid epidemic, which what brought me to the cannabis field, and given that it could entirely prevent two of the hallmarks of opioid misuse, dose escalation and physical dependence. We can actually conclude that the evidence supports the role of cannabis in acute non-severe pain management and leads to substantial reduction in opioid prescription rates, therefore reducing society's dependence on opioids. It further highlights the needs for additional research and on the efficacy of cannabis as opioid replacement therapy. So again, this drug interaction is called synergy or synergistic analgesia, and it shows that the reception sites, that it's using the same reception sites, and it's a great welcome interaction that can be effectively used to assist all of our patients. I touched on CBD, so I just wanted to do a quick touch up on THC. THC also has some interactions by inducing the same cytochrome P450 family of enzymes. Therefore, THC can potentially interact with any of these drugs that I mentioned, lowering the levels of the drugs in the body, especially making less effective antipsychotics. So Thorazine, Haldol, Zyprexa, some of the muscle relaxants such as Flexeril, and even an inflammatory such as Aleve. Some of the other notable drug interactions that I want to mention is THC and CBD both increase warfarin levels, which can actually increase bleeding risk. I'm sure a lot of people know that alcohol will be increasing the THC level or vice versa. Combining cannabis with tobacco can cause increased respiratory symptoms. And cannabis used with sedating anticholinergics may cause additive tachycardia and drowsiness. Various factors may affect drug interactions as well, such as the CBD-THC ratio and obviously a strain profile. In general, short-term effects of cannabis may include the sense of euphoria, altered sense of time, mood changes, impaired body movement, difficulty thinking or problem solving, and impaired memory. Other physical effects of cannabis may include breathing problems, such as daily cough, phlegm, more frequent lung illness, higher risk of infection, increased heart rate for up to 3 hours after smoking cannabis, which can actually increase the risk of myocardial infarction. The risk is high in elderly and patients with known cardiovascular disease. Data on drug interactions with medical cannabis is still being researched, so we do not yet have a full picture of all possible drug interactions, and there may be many more that we don't know about yet. The next thing I want to talk about is the microdosing, because that's something that I find extremely interesting, is microdosing cannabis, especially in people with severe issues, with severe medical conditions. So the catch with cannabis, especially if you're using it medicinally, that no doctor can actually tell you the perfect dose. So microdosing relies very heavily on trial and error because THC, CBD, and other compounds activate and mimic the body's natural endocannabinoid system. And those receptors function differently in everyone. Plus, other aspects of personal chemistry like tolerance and metabolism also play a role. And obviously genetics, which is something that I'm really looking forward to exploring in the later years. So just to conclude, I want to, kind of bring us back for why MyCureAll is a need and such an important part of the medical cannabis recommendation process. While medical cannabis is being established in the scientific community as a medication of choice for many conditions, the current method of prescribing is inadequate. The MyCureAll web app enables patients, physicians, dispensaries, and insurance companies to work hand in hand to achieve a natural solution to a plethora of medical conditions. We're allowing patients to actively participate in their treatment and to take ownership of their healthcare, which to me is their own personal cure-all. Patients let us know what medication they currently take and what symptoms they want to alleviate or what condition to treat, and we provide them with the best medical protocols. Prescribers have been complaining about lack of proper education about the endocannabinoid system and are frustrated for not having standardized protocols based on patients' age, sex, medical conditions, self-reported symptoms, and potential drug interactions. We'll now have MyCureAll that provides that perfect solution for that, an ecosystem to navigate the medicinal cannabis world. And the last thing I do want to mention is that we have patent pending technology, Scanometer and Canomeasure, which allows doctors to identify and recommend specific strains, ratios, and cannabinoids for qualifying conditions and presenting symptoms, taking the guesswork out of prescribing medicinal cannabis. The data that is that's been fed into our Canometer and Canomeasure comes from our team analyzing 356 studies, which demonstrated that not all available strains treat symptoms and illnesses in the same way. The cannabinoids and terpenes that make one strain ineffective at treating irritable bowel syndrome might make it highly effective at treating symptoms associated with cancer. While the composition of another strain might make it a useful remedy for anxiety, it could be a very wrong choice for someone looking to treat Tourette syndrome. So as patients, doctors, and dispensaries share their own experiences with strains in our app, we're actually able to help and improve our algorithm. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Elaine. It's so great that you're bringing this technology to the consumers, especially with your expertise and providing all that insight. So thank you. And now we're up for our next speaker, Dr. Kourosh Parsapour, founder of WheatRx. So Dr. Parsapour has over 15 years of experience in pediatrics and critical care. His background in technology-enabled healthcare solutions started in 2005 at UC Davis. His research and numerous publications in telemedicine culminated in his first startup, Telepeds. Specialists on Call, the leading provider of telestroke services, acquired Telepeds within its first year. Subsequent to his successful exit, he obtained his healthcare executive MBA from UC Irvine and co-founded 2 digital health startups, 5plus and Personal RN, or PRN. He is currently the CEO of PRN, which provides disease-specific mHealth education that is personalized to the needs of patients and their caregivers. In late 2016, PRN applied its unique patient assessment and education platform as a new vertical in the cannabis industry to address the physician shortage, which exists in evaluating medical marijuana patients. The platform evolved into the current clinical decision support software, CAN DSS, which will soon be available nationwide to assist physicians in providing efficient and more accurate patient evaluations. Welcome, Dr. Parsapour.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having me, Brad. Again, thank you for inviting me. Can you guys see me okay? Is this
Yes.
working okay? Yeah, okay. All right. I'm actually I have a little deck I prepared for you guys, and I'm kind of just gonna tell a little story. And let's see if I can actually get the deck working now. My topic is going to be basically talking about legitimizing the use of medical cannabis, because right now there's, obviously there's a lot of stigmas attached with its use, and there's a lot of doctors that won't, they kind of shy away from the whole thing. That said, the reason for it is it's multifactorial, and that's kind of what I'm going to dive into. But I was gonna, here we go. Can you guys see this? Can you see this now?
Yes.
Okay. So I was going to basically use our startup, WeedRex, which is in various phases of its evolution, basically talk about how we've employed evidence-based practices with the aim of always wanting to legitimize the medical use of cannabis and get it to where it needs to be as a medication. So right now we're at a very unique point in our species timeline where this is the very first time ever in our species that there are more people over the age of 55 than there are under the age of 55, which means that people are living longer, but they're not necessarily living healthier. And as we age and the ailments build up, the need for medical attention is going to increase. And you can see by the supply and demand curve, unfortunately, the amount of there's a steady state of doctors, but yet there's this rapid increase of patients and their needs. And one of the ways that basically I wanted to address this issue, which is eventually in about 10, 15 years, it's going to be a major crisis, was to use technology, relevant technology, to either improve access to care, to improve the quality of care, or to reduce the cost of care. That's basically the idea behind what we do. My partner and I, Andrew Thomas, he's a technical co-founder, and he's been very much involved in some of the stuff that we're doing that I'm going to show you guys. Now, this physician shortage is even more exaggerated in our industry. And the reason for it is basically because, again, let me just go on. There you go. Doctors are they don't teach us anything about cannabis in medical school. They don't. I didn't even know there was an endocannabinoid system that existed until I actually got into this endeavor. There's a lot of social stigma attached with it. There's biases, as you guys well know. So it's hard to find physicians that are qualified and actually know what they're doing. And so this was a major gap that we started seeing. Sorry, I'll leave this on for 2 more seconds just in case. And there was a huge gap that existed, especially in California, because there was a lot of doctors that were coming in with like tennis shoes and shorts and baseball caps and giving you a recommendation. You just walk in and say, my nipple hurts, and they'd be like, here you go, here's a rec. And unfortunately, the problem with it was not only were they not evaluating patients effectively, but they were also charging ridiculous prices. So basically, we aggressively came into the market with an ad campaign like this, and we got some heat for it, but it definitely made a splash. And in 2016, we launched. Basically our competitors' prices can be seen here around, $50, $60, $70. And we came in at $9.99. And the reason we were able to reduce the cost like that, so we were basically $10, was because a lot of the intake, a lot of the basic assessment that would be done was automated. And what we built was a dynamic and a very personalized patient experience, but something that was clinically relevant. I mean, we all go to a hospital or clinics, and they ask you the same 15 questions over and over and over again. And you're like, as a guy, you're filling out, no, NA, I'm not pregnant, you know, and it's ridiculous. So, you know, anytime we have the belief structure that if you're engaging, if you're engaging with a touch point on an app, on a screen, there should be a reason you're doing that, and it should drive a doctor's decision one way or another. And so with that, the first thing we did was we immediately automated a lot of the contraindications. This is now, again, keep in mind, we're doing this because we wanted to have a standard of care. We wanted to have evidence-based information in the way we treat our patients. So the contraindications were really easy. You know, are you pregnant? Are you breastfeeding? Are you trying to have a baby? And that's kind of iffy. There's debate about that. But there are things that a lot of the doctors weren't asking for. Like if you're under 25 years of age and you have a first-degree family member who has schizophrenia, you run the risk of having your first psychotic episode and going into a bad, you know, situation for the rest of your life. Bipolar disorders, if you're actively suicidal. So we really addressed the mental health elements really quickly. And then we went into the more social elements that might be a factor if you know, you have a medical marijuana recommendation, like, you know, what if you have chemical dependence? What if you're in rehab? What if you're an alcoholic? What if, you know, you have probation or parole restrictions on using cannabis? Maybe you have kids at home and there's an active CPS investigation going on, or you've had a DUI just 6 weeks earlier. So these were things that we started peppering in there, and we started noticing that, you know, we're really building something of value here. So then we started building in actual screening tools. These are the same screening tools I would use in the ER to evaluate my patients. So, you know, we put in a depression screening tool and then ended up building a suicidality index. To date, we've actually been able to avert 57 active suicides. And I didn't do that in my entire career in the ER. So that in and of itself made me feel good and made me feel that, okay, we might be onto something, because patients were also responding. A lot of patients with undiagnosed mental health disorders that have never been evaluated by a patient, by a physician, that have never felt comfortable to talk about it. The anonymity of our website allowed them to engage and do so comfortably. And we would get forms that were completely filled out and more, and sharing with us very personal, very deep, detailed information. And they were just looking for help. Anxiety screens, ADHD, post-traumatic, I spelled that wrong, I'm sorry. And then we went into the basics, like blood pressure screening, cholesterol, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, where for smokers, addiction medicine. If we started doing patient education. If you had a child under 6 years of age, we made you read safety protocols. So how to safely put your weed away so the kids wouldn't get into it, your pets wouldn't get into it. What if you had atrial fibrillation, a common arrhythmia that happens in older people, and which, by the way, is the fastest growing population in cannabis. And, you know, if grandma has AFib, well, with atrial fibrillation, a clot can form in your heart and it can shoot off to your brain, resulting in a stroke. So the way you treat that is you put these patients on anticoagulants. Well, if grandma's already getting lightheaded and she's on an anticoagulant, she's a risk for falling and seriously hurting herself, and she smokes some of the current strains that are out there, it gets even more lightheaded. Well, if she falls and hits her head and has an intracranial hemorrhage, we have a real problem on our hands. So it's not as simple. It's not as easy as people make it out to be. You're just going to get weed. Well, there's some real issues. If we want to treat it like a medicine, we have to respect it like a medicine. And as the person before mentioned, erectile dysfunction, it's not just an extended erection. It's priapism. And for the men in the audience, I don't think you want to part with your member. So. And then from there we went on to patient education. You know, we started building tools that patients could use to translate numbers into sensible awareness and instruction. Heart healthy lifestyles, telling kids, hey, if you're under 25, your brain's still developing. Maybe you might not want to smoke some weed. multiple sclerosis, asthma, stroke. So suddenly we had something that was very, very robust, and it started to, and patients were coming, word of mouth was going. We started putting using ad space on weed maps. But as you can see, somewhere around like June or July of 2017, there's this dip. And that was just basically, I didn't have the capability to manage all the patients that were coming at me. So I had to build something, and so what happened here? There we go. So what I built was a clinical decision support software, or called it a cannabis decision support software, or Candace as we call it at work. And basically, Candace was able to automate. We quantified the patient's responses and assigned it some clinical scores based on my experience in 15, 20 years at the hospital, and then basically there were some evaluations that were just slam dunks that fell in the green zone, other ones that fell in the yellow zone that I would call, get involved with, and the red zones were automatic disqualifications. So suddenly 2/3 of my workload was addressed in an efficient manner. And this is a fundamental element of physician shortages. One of the reasons that we have so many non-clinical things to do, if we can take some of that away from us from the use of oh, sorry, am I going over? So basically that we let me go this way. So to demonstrate scale, we were, relative to Presto Doc that did 15, that had, used 15 physicians to see 40,000 patients in 36 months, which we achieved in 2 years, in 3 years as well, but with only 2 physicians using this system. Then we realized, wow, this can really help doctors in their physician shortages. So we decided to go to go across the country, but we don't have the connections. And so I'm very proud to announce formally today that starting next week, we're starting to collaborate with Healy, and we're going to be using Healy's doctors to get our intake process in 11 different states. And we hope that, and that'll basically drive the patients towards more physicians. The value of this obviously becomes the output that we've created for our current process is it immediately trims the fat and gives the doctors exactly what they need to know in that right there MD attention summary page. They can see all the data if they want, but it provides it to them. So we've now gone from user-friendly for the patients to user-friendly for the doctors, improving efficiencies. And basically, phase 3 of our distribution, we're going to be building a mobile app solution under the personal RN flag, and basically it'll be it'll start at diagnosing the patient, evaluating what they need in terms of what type of cannabis and what even up to where to get it and what strains and what doses. And thank you very much. My information's there. I'm happy to take any questions at any point later. But thanks for the opportunity to speak.
Great, thank you, Dr. Parsapour. Really appreciate the insight. Love having the medical industry really involved in developing and designing the technology being used, and love the partnership with Healy. Okay, so moving on to our next speaker, we have Chris Bolton, who's the CEO of Theracann International. Chris is a senior executive with a proven reputation for creating a corporate vision to maximize multi-stakeholder input and the knowledge and passion to implement that vision on a global scale. He has multi-industry experience, and at Theracann International, Chris is responsible for managing the overall operations of the company. He is focused on communicating the vision and mission of Theracann International with the goal of confirming and discovering what policies, products, and marketing strategies will help them remain a key market influencer, leader, and innovator in the legal, industrial, hemp, and commercial cannabis sector. So welcome, Chris. Appreciate you being here with us. Chris. Is Chris on?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Jim.
There you go.
Oh, perfect.
Okay.
There we go.
Well, it's an absolute pleasure to be here today. And just to start off with a bit of tongue in cheek, based on Emily's reference to a Gardner cycle, The Gardner hype cycle is used all the way through the industry. We use it all the time. But just for some fun today, look it up for emerging quarantine, just to get a kick out of it and put a smile on your face for today. Give a bit of a lighten up with regards to our COVID situation. Today's talk is just about that. We're going to review the opportunities that are springboarding from the challenges that we are facing. And as part of what I wanted to also discuss today, and thank you, Jim, for that great intro, is our history as a company goes back almost 16 years. And it started originally as Benchmark Laboratories Group, a Canadian accredited ISO 17025 group of laboratories that was doing court defensible data on regulatory compliance analysis, both chemical and biological. And it was during that course of our work with agricultural products that became clear that cannabis is not wheat, it's not canola, and it's certainly not a tomato or a cucumber. For those of you that don't know, cannabis is often known as a phytoremediation plant. The cannabis plant is a weed, and it loves to take whatever it finds in the soil, and in this case, heavy metals. And so for even our friends in Colombia, I've had the opportunity to review some of these projects where they thought they would get a good tax break or benefit in getting a tailing pond next to an abandoned mine for tax, only found out that the plant was really good at remediating the soil around the mine, but completely discounted the fact that the product can now no longer be sold. It loves to take up arsenic. We're getting involved in a project in Vietnam, for example, where arsenic actually has a very high level of naturally in the soil, and this darn plant really likes to pick it up. It also loves a lot of bacteria, and it loves mold. And in our earliest projects, and we'll talk about the supply chain here in a minute, going back to inception, the biggest problem that we've had is if given the right environment, this will unfortunately bring the crop to its knees. And we've seen well-documented cases, again, coming out of multiple countries, where losses in the neighborhood of $30 to $40 million is not unusual if not managed well. And unfortunately, up until recently in some jurisdictions, the crop wasn't even insurable. So our goal as a company right from the get-go had always been to envision the supply chain in a way that could be stabilized. And in so doing, much of the lessons that we put into play almost a decade ago are now finding a good home in the stressed economy that we're in today. And I'm going to share with you some lessons learned from this and some opportunities that we've been deploying to our client base to help them see this bottom trough cycle as Emily was talking about earlier this morning. Now, this crude diagram, and I put it up here for a reason, is the supply chain as my team mapped out back in 2012. And in 2012, we had yet to get Uruguay, we'd yet to get Canada, but we could see the emerging market horizon. And what we were trying to best understand is where did we stand in terms of any industrial hope of meeting international demand? Now, as a former federal prosecutor of drugs, of psilocybin and cannabis, I have to say I knew what the technology looked like. We did a lot of the medical health warrant houses for a number of Department of Health in Western Canada. And the technology was the 3Ds, dark, dank, and dangerous. It wasn't anywhere near industrial scale. And when we first went live in Canada in June of 2013, we were taking effectively grandma's basement and replicating it more times, hoping that that would get us to an industrial revolution, so to speak, of technology. Certainly it's come a long way, and we're going to review that at the end of the presentation today. But the point of my talk is we saw what was necessary to be able to get into large-scale industrial at a way that we knew would be a race to the bottom in terms of price per production per gram. But we also looked at it from a point of view, from a federal prosecutor's point of view, how the heck could we do this on an international scale that would allow for international banking to work? And one of the reasons why we are, of course, located here in Panama, and this is our Center of Excellence in Panama as a head office, with offices in Calgary, and we have staff in the US and staff in London and in Sydney, Australia right now. The reason that we put it here, though, is we've got international concentration of banks that is rare. And it is also a jurisdiction that went through Panama Papers, that got blacklisted in Europe, and the banks are hypersensitive with regards to doing any transactions that touch cannabis. And for us being able to demonstrate to them our methodology as how that could be done, I'm going to share with you how that's done and how it will leapfrog into other new sectors that are emerging through COVID. It's opened very much, as I said, these new opportunities for us. Now, in regards to the supply chain, it has unfortunately advanced effectively in 7 years. The aeronautics industry had 200 years to build supply chain. Auto had 100 years. We had none. We had zero. And because of that, trying to even get jurisdictions that were lining up consistently on the law was difficult. And it's gotten to the point, certainly for the new emerging markets, where we've crafted the law for them. And in working with a variety of governments around the world, 11 in total so far, putting in entirely new frameworks or fixing the ones that are broken have very much been the order of the day. But we're also building frameworks that can extend to include other sectors, such as the emerging psychedelics market, what we'll chat and touch on as emerging opportunity, as well as urban farm food as an opportunity, utilizing the same auditors and inspectors of departments that are horribly overwhelmed right now within these jurisdictions, but provide opportunity for the government to be able to contribute losses to GDP in a way that would help these countries get back on their feet without risking the loss of their international banking. And that has been a real risk for us in many of these jurisdictions. So for example, before we move to tech that we feel was best suited to solve these problems, for example, with regards to countries that have had a long-standing history of illicit grow ops, for example, convincing a bank that large-scale outdoor grow is a way to make a product that can be consumed and shipped internationally, though it may be agreeable at a regulatory level, and it may be agreeable at a state or provincial level, at the end of the day, the bank says no. It's purely a policy decision. If they can't track it, they're not gonna let it in the bank. And anyone that is here, and I'd call for a raise of hands, how many of you have lost bank accounts? You know exactly what I mean. And in Canada, when we warned Health Canada well in advance of 2016, that loss of traceability of product was rampant, no one listened until all 5 banks closed them, often with 22 or 28 days notice before that happened. Uruguay, 3 years later, shutting down the banks for the pharmacies. This wasn't just an issue of international US bank intermediary bank issues. This was fundamentally a traceability issue. And without it, we ran into huge problems. So the way that we've approached this issue, and I'm just gonna share the sites so you can get your own information because very limited time today. The first thing that we had to convince banks is that whatever is being produced could be strictly monitored and controlled. And the other issue we had, especially working with the earliest producers, is we found that much of the product that was being produced had huge rates of variability. Now, coming from an agricultural background myself, and certainly wanting to be at the equator where there's a lot of free sunlight, as much as that sounds like fun, the reality is that this plant, if you take our tour here, the plant does in fact vary distinctly with regards to slight variations with regards to lighting, temperature, humidity, CO2, nutrient schedule, and as I said, it loves to contaminate itself routinely with chemical and biological outputs. Being able to control the root causes of the variation allow the batch to repeat. And working with the larger producers, certainly out of Canada, which are some of the largest in the world, when we were watching batch variability of 17%, that's not medicine. That's not a product for research and development. That's wine, maybe, at best. So being able to strictly control and repeat the batch, especially on a whole plant extract, which is where the industry is purely heading right now, was the way to go. And so we built a technology that manages that and controls and allows for those batches to be repeated. The other thing that we had to do is that traceability. Let's say we repeat the batch and we get it in a form that will always ensure high value for that batch. Could we then track it? In order to do that, tracking the package wasn't enough. We knew that. And we predicted that we'd start running into problems in early 2015. And then we started to see it, really see it, watch it happen. Where licensed locations were not honestly recording all of the on-site use of the product within its 4 walls. If it lost a batch, it was going out to the illicit market to get product, to bring it in, to put it in a package with a white label and send it back out the door. That's called the gray market. And the gray market soared to the point again that we started seeing license suspensions. Tress in Canada is a very good case in this. but I can go through many other countries to show you how it happened. But once we show that we can show where the grams come from and how they can be recorded within a confined space, that there's no chance that it's the other farm or field 20 miles down the road that's illicit, being added to illicit to get into oil production, for example. And we were able to track both the plant as raw material and the oil as finished goods. Then they started to listen. And that took every effort of my being. Both walking into their offices of senior compliance officers as both a prosecutor, former prosecutor, and someone who understands regulatory matters, someone who also ran an ISO 17025 lab, to be able to show to them that we can satisfy those issues to a FAT, F, and FinCEN compliance level. Only then did they allow their national banks to open up to us. And that for us was the holy grail of the industry. If we could get the banks that level of comfort, then large scale transactions can happen. But I can tell you this, and I'm sure you know, banks don't come to our conferences. Banks rarely, if ever, get to the big international ones. They're starting to now, mostly at our request. But because they can't mitigate their risk, the biggest issue will be is that if you've got a product that's showing up in a facility that they can't account for, maybe 2 weeks notice, pull your money out and try again, or have your large wire bounce. And then that is a fundamental problem with regards to outdoor grow. And right now we have 7 new jurisdictions that will only allow hemp to be grown for the 42,000 other uses, except for human consumption. Everything else is going to be indoors and it has to be strictly monitored. To do that, you have to get a wrapper. We have our OS2 software. It's ending version 6, moving to version 7 now, multilingual, multi-currency, country interoperable, that allows the traceability of all those grams, including blockchain from consumption, destruction, recall, all the way back to tissue culture, for example, to follow it. And because of that, we have been able, as I said, through our centers of excellence, demonstrate to the regulatory powers that be in the banks to allow us to do business internationally. And that for us was the supply chain that had to come together for us very quickly. Now, to wrap this up and show you where we see the opportunities, at the end of the day, we had to, one, show that it could work within multiple jurisdictions and be able to flex as different jurisdictions got very busy while others were being sequestered or put into quarantine. And we have a very distributed model. Any LPs that we work with are designed to be country interoperable. So if we do have a closure or shutdown in one, we can pick up and transfer opportunity to another and be able to shift that weight or that burden to other jurisdictions that are still in play. And that was very important. Also, with regards to the technologies that we have, be able to have them incorporated and work either as a standalone service and technology company or as part of an overall solution, which is benchmark solution. And that gave us multiple verticals of revenue and opportunity. Now, the emerging markets for us to wrap up are real quick. The psychedelic space has come on like lightning. But again, it's cannabis 0.0 version 0.0 all over again. There is no industrial supply. On the left with cannabis, within 7 years, we went from just smoking this product as a medical product and tried doing that in the ICU, good luck, to veterinarian, research and development, recreational, of course, and then the all-important medical. Right now in psilocybin, we don't have that yet. In fact, we're extending our facilities to be able to develop and extend the technologies we have to get into those markets without having to do much muss or fuss with regards to the existing facility. Why is that important? Because it's going to allow LPs that are for cannabis to be able to extend their SKU line to another new vertical market, which, as we've seen reported everywhere, is going to ramp up to the same market levels that we see for cannabis. And especially after COVID, with the depression issues that we have, it being the primary alternative instead of opioids to help people that are struggling and dealing with mental health issues through COVID. Last but not least is urban farming is taking off like a rocket because the supply chain has broken, especially with regards to transfer of product out of country. Even here in Panama, our center of excellence, the picture that you see here, we've been pinged to convert it to make fruits and vegetables within the equipment that we already have on site, because then they can get it into the stores downtown Panama much faster and not be cut off by curfew at the end of the day, which is what's happening for the distance in which their drivers have to travel. To do that supply chain effectively, all the pieces still have to be in play. to preferably an EU GMP compliant standard. And then from there, be able to show the bank that the money that's coming in is tracked to the grams that are going back out. And then from there, show the quality assurance auditors that everything won't load them any more than they already are. And because this system is well designed as a supply chain for quality without contaminants, we're not going to add more people to the hospital list, which is music to the ears of government. I can tell you that right now. So our team, as I said, has had to be deployed. It's mainly just be able to manage all the country shutdown risk. That is difficult on a good day, but I can say multiple jurisdictions have opened up very quickly. New Zealand is back on its feet, for example. Australia has not lost a step. Zimbabwe and South Africa have certainly had their issues, but we are starting large-scale projects there and without missing beats. So it is possible, but you have to go hunting, and good luck on that hunting for you. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Did have a question about what are the 2 to 3 key success factors based on your data that differentiate successful cannabis cultivators?
Repeatability, repeatability, repeatability. Right now, especially with good strains that can be purchased, if not managed well, you're doing yourself a horrible disfavor. We also have seen this emergence of research going to a full plant extract. And full plant extract means that. It doesn't mean grab a bunch of batches and then pull the molecules apart during our extraction process and then reformulate them at the end of the day. All you're going to get is paint, but it's going to be different colored paint between each of the batches in which you try to produce. And it's horribly expensive and it's time consuming. If we can show that the batches are equal and like, and we're not losing batches for chemical and biological contamination, then the model is brilliant. The profitability, as most know, is exceptionally high, and it's better than most, if any, other industries we've worked with in the last decade. But you have to control your crop.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Appreciate all the insight, and look forward to hearing more. Now, there are some more questions in the Q&A section. So panelists, can you please take a look at those and fill them out at your leisure. We're just now looking for Cheech. I believe he's in the room. Just confirming. All right. Can I get a confirmation on Cheech? Because he's in the waiting room.
Give me just a second. I don't believe we have a waiting room. I didn't set one up, so I'm not sure where he would be then. Did he go into the right Zoom?
Okay, getting on. Here he is. Okay. All right. I'm just going back and forth with his team. Make sure we can find him. In in-person conferences, it's easy when they're there. You just grab them out of the green room. Okay, he is waiting on. Okay. Is there a way you can send me a link? Oh, Cheech here. Ah, he's Jim Baudino. He may be Jim Baudino. See if you search for Jim Baudino in the audience.
So I asked if he was going to come under a pseudonym. Cool. I just added him to panelists. Just give it a second.
All right.
There we go.
Got it. Okay. All right. Cheech, if you can hear me.
He'll need to unmute himself. There we go.
Okay, can you hear me?
Ah, there we go.
But where am I?
Do we get, is the video?
No.
We've got your voice.
Okay, hey,
We're halfway there.
FaceTime HD camera. I don't know. There we go. Ah, I'm here.
We see it.
I see you. I know I see me and some of you guys there.
Oh, not yet. Don't see yet.
Don't take me off when I'm. All right. Start my. Okay, there we go.
Hey, there we go. Nice. Okay.
Don't go away. Hi.
Hi. Hi. Great seeing you again. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's nice to be seen.
Yes. So I know I can go into your long biography and all the amazing things that you've done, acting, directing, writing, your Chicano art.
Well, you can list them all and I can go to have a nap right now.
But let's dive right in because I know we'll be touching on a lot of that.
Yeah,
you know, first off, how have you and the family been and holding up during all of this COVID quarantine? Everyone healthy?
Oh, so far we're doing good. We've we have a place out in the desert, so we've been there for the last, 5-6 months, just kind of in the desert. The only thing that we're kind of looking at the future and see, what are the problems we face. And the only thing that really freaks me out is like a break in the food chain. Mm-hmm. So we've been developing a new supply of disaster relief food. I guess it's called jackrabbit jerky. So we got a bunch of jackrabbits out here. So we're making jerky and it comes fresh from our shovel to your table to ensure freshness. And now it's coming in jalapeno flavor. So look for it. It comes pre-flattened and hopefully there'll be, it'll last a long time.
That's great to know.
Yeah.
But everyone's healthy for the family?
Yeah, so far. Yeah, amazing. It's so far. You can't get infected by other people when there's no other people.
That's true.
Yeah.
So you've been an institution in the cannabis industry since the early days. And did you ever imagine when you were filming Up in Smoke that cannabis would someday be deemed essential by the federal government?
Well, it was essential for us for a long time, it still is. But we always thought it would be legal. There's no reason why it should, because it was illegal for most of the time until, sometime in the 20s or 30s where they wanted to combat, they wanted to get rid of hemp. So because they had invented nylon and Dacron and Orlon and rayon, and hemp was their main competition. So they tried to eliminate that by demonizing marijuana. So, but it's always been it's a Mexican thing, it's marijuana, in California, Los Angeles, all those other Mexican terms.
So there's been such an enormous growth in the medical cannabis market, and that's why we're all here today. How have you been impacted by medicinal use of cannabis yourself?
Oh, just recently I just had a knee replacement surgery, second one on the other knee. And the first one, during the rehabilitation process, I used opioids. Took a long time, 6 months to recover from that. And it hurt every single second of every single day. And then you had to deal with getting off these opioids at the end, which is not wonderful. And I was getting very depressed, and I made up my mind that if I ever had to get another one of these, which I did, I was going to do something else. And this time I used dabs instead of opioids, and it came out perfect. My rehab time was 2 months, didn't hurt at all, and I'm doing fine. There was no recovery period or getting off dabs. Finding more dabs is what the problem was.
That's great. So I heard something maybe about a CBD line.
Yeah, we have Cheech's private stash, or Cheech's stash now, and we have all kinds of line of CBD products, tinctures, creams that they're anti-inflammatory. They clear, help, at least in my case, they have help clear skin problems, and you can swallow them, tinctures. The sleeping aids, all kinds of things. Just go to cheech.com and you'll find all our products there.
Perfect. And so maybe getting into a little bit more about the products that you have. I've had the opportunity to try Cheech's Stash. Yes. So thank you for that wonderful experience.
You find it wherever fine marijuana is sold.
Yes, in Colorado, Nevada, Washington, and California.
That's right. We're just coming out in California as we speak.
Wonderful. Can you tell me a little bit about Cheech's Stash? And I know you're a big flower guy.
Yeah, mostly I like flower, because I'm old school. But I'm increasingly getting to edibles and other distillates. I think it's much more handy, and they're kind of made for specific problems, and that really helps me out. So, but I like flower. I'm an old-fashioned kind of guy.
And so you have pre-rolls as well?
We're coming out with a new pre-roll called the Big Chicharron. And it's flour and keef on the outside. And for the first 6 months of its release, all the profits were going to what's his name?
Last Prisoners Project.
Last Prisoners Project, yeah, which we're sharing or giving the profits to right the wrongs of the legalization or unlegalization of marijuana, so that we can help get some people out of jail and get their records expunged. We're going to start with Tommy Chong, so they can ask like that's the first guy.
Speaking of Tommy, you got some retail outlets maybe coming out next year?
What? Oh, movie?
No, retail outlets, so dispensaries.
Oh, yes, we've just signed a deal to what is the term I want to use? We just signed a deal for Cheech and Chong dispensaries.
Yes.
And they'll be in neighborhoods close to you soon. We're going to start them I think the first one comes out within about a month. They carry all products, not just Cheech or Chong products, but you'll be able to access them very quickly in California and then in other states.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that experiential cannabis buying experience.
Me too.
Yeah.
Because our motto is, and Cheech's Stash is, it will always be good.
Yes.
Because we personally test it.
Nice. So there are many investors from across the globe watching right now. I mean, everyone from India, Africa, Europe. What is the best way for them to get involved with what you're doing from an investment perspective?
Well, go to my website, cheech.com, and look for Cheech's Stash and all avenues to invest. And we're looking for investors all the time, because it's better than, a lot of other stuff to invest in, that you will be able to join our cause. And we always are looking for other team members to join in this process for us, so just cheech.com.
Wonderful. And I'll be bringing Lisa Marcus in a little bit.
Yes, absolutely.
to join in the conversation. So you've always been a supporter of nonprofits. You mentioned Last Prisoners Project.
Yeah.
I know you've been big with the arts. And can you explain a little bit about your Chicano art collection? And one of the largest in the world, if not the largest.
Yeah. In the history of the universe, actually.
Yes.
Yeah. But I've been collecting Chicano art for over 50 years, and we've come to the point where and I've been touring the collection for a lot of those years, and I was trying to figure out what to do with this collection. How that we've done this so much, and out of the blue, the city of Riverside, California, came to me and offered me a museum to house the collection. They were looking to repurpose a building that they had here, which there was the town library, to build in a new Jetsons library down the street, with neon, and so they had to repurpose the building, and they, by some miraculous circuitous route, they came to me and offered us the building for the collection, and we will open in the fall of 2021. It's a beautiful, beautiful building. I don't know if anybody out there has ever been to Riverside, California, but it's an old historic California town that in the late 1880s was the richest per capita town in the United States because of citrus. They grew all things citrus, oranges, lemons, tangelos, grapefruits, and they shipped it all over the country. So they became quite wealthy, small population, so everybody shared in this. And they commissioned a string of really historic buildings on their main street, Mission Boulevard. And this particular building sits right next door to the Mission Inn, which is a National Historic Monument. Over, I think, 13 or 14 presidents have stayed there, and it's a beautiful building, and we sit right next door to it on the main street. 66,420 square feet, 420 being the operative number.
And you'll have about 700 of your own pieces?
Yeah, there. And we'll roll that out. It'll take, they estimate it'll take about 5 years to roll out the whole collection. And we get to do a deep dive into that collection. And we'll also be running programs, because this isn't just a repository of paintings or art. There'll be a film a department in there, which Robert Rodriguez has consented to lead and do programs there, and we'll have a bunch of other programs that are going along with us at the same time as you enjoy the art.
Well, that's fantastic. Thank you.
It is
supporting the arts.
We like that, because I've been showing this collection all over, from every single major institution, art institution in the country, from the Smithsonian to LACMA to San Diego Museum, the De Young, just every one of them throughout the country. For the main tour went on for 7 years, and then there's additional tours that went on for equal amount of time. So that's been a lot of fun to get a Chicano art to heretofore unknown parts of the country.
Well, that is great. So I look forward to seeing it open up.
Oh, we also have masks. Let me do this one. The Cheech.
Oh, that's great.
There
And how do you get those?
In the mail. Go to the website, CheechandChart/art, and you'll see that. That's the Cheech. I even spelled the name correctly.
Yes, it is. Yep.
And that's what the institution will be called, the Cheech Marin Center for Chicano Art and Culture. I tore my ears off. Art and Culture, and we nicknamed it the Cheech. I tried to get them to do that right away, so there was no argument, and everybody agreed. Like it have the Broad or something like that. We now have the Cheech in Riverside, California.
We'll look forward to visiting that.
Yeah, please. And look for our products on Cheech.com. And we got a lot of stuff to offer, and we want to help the community as much as we can. The Last Prisoner Project being among them, and all and the profits for the first 6 months of these, the big Chicharron will go to that entity.
Thank you for giving back so much. And
yeah.
So speaking of some other celebrities that may want to get into this industry, how can you best advocate for cannabis? How can they use their presence to best advocate? Because you've done such a wonderful job. What have you been found like most effective? And
You know, if you show them how it affects you, how you use it in your daily life, or you know, and it makes it much more authentic. Lisa looks like she's trying to get in here. Are you trying to get in here, Lisa?
Is Lisa in?
I see her face. Go away. Okay. No, Lisa's not here. If the police are looking for her, I've never seen her. You know, how it affects in your daily life. I mean, it was a big part of our Cheech and Chong identity. Oh, I have that other mask. There's a new Cheech and Chong mask too.
Love it.
Everywhere you go, always wear a mask. Come on, let's suppress this virus and get back to work so I can go out and do some more shows and you can be safe. We always wanted you to be safe, but you know, you got to don't listen to the politics. Listen to the science.
No, that's great. They are the true influencers and celebrities now.
You know, I hope so. You know, I'm waiting for my Dr. Fauci mask. You
know. Yes, when you're being impersonated in Saturday Night Live, you've hit, you've hit celebrity status.
You know, you made it. You know, we're in a unique position right now. The country is in danger from this virus growing and lasting a long time. The longer it lasts, the longer our economy stays shut down, and we don't want that.
Yes. Well, Cheech, I really appreciate you being here. So I'm going to ask Lisa a couple of questions. You're free to stay on if you want to.
Okay, yeah.
From the sidelines. But
sure, Lisa.
Yeah, Lisa, Marcus. So maybe do a quick introduction and can you share your relationship and how you've known each other?
Well, I'm Cheech's Jewish sister.
Yeah, we met in jail.
Well, I only say that because Cheech's stash is a family business, as many of you know. Cheech's daughter, Jasmine, and Joey, his son, are a big part of our business. And
quality control.
Yeah, right. And since it's a family business, I had to figure out what my part was. So I became his New York Jewish sister.
There we go.
And the aunt of Joey and Jasmine. But on a serious note, I met Cheech about 5 years ago, and we created a mezcal together, Tres Papalote mezcal.
Tres Papalote.
Tres Papalote, yes. And it took me it took Cheech about 3 years to train me how to say that. Right, every time I say it, he'd yell at me, go, "You've got to know how to say the name, Lisa."
It adds to authenticity.
Yes. So we just struck up a great relationship. I fell in love with him and his wife, Natasha, and the kids. And when it came time to do the cannabis brand, Cheech said, "Would you like to be part of it?" And I said, "I would love to." So I managed the brand for Cheech. We're the licensing company, and we worked really hard and diligently together to bring Cheech's stash to all of Cheech's friends and fans.
And all the deserving stoners.
Right. Right. Yes.
So what is it like working with Cheech and, Cheech, cover your ears?
Well, we're always laughing, to be honest. We're always laughing because Cheech is truly, all his responses are so quick and witty. But the other part of working with Cheech is that people, see Cheech a certain way from his Cheech and Chong persona, but Cheech is a brilliant man. Cheech, don't listen to this. He really is. He's brilliant in terms of, his intelligence, his quick wit, his marketing. He comes up with some great additions. Like our theme or our tagline is, "It will always be good." And one day Cheech just said, "Yeah, it will always be good." So that became our tagline. So he really works with us. It's not just his name. He's part of everything we do. And as I mentioned, Jim, when we spoke, everything has to be Cheech approved. All products have to be Cheech approved.
And they are.
Multiple times, I'm assuming.
Because it will always be good, or else it doesn't go out under the Cheech label.
Yeah.
That is great. And that's, really the standard for how any celebrities or influencers should be approaching the space.
Yeah. Because you want to, you know, because there's good weed out there. You want to make sure that your people get it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So with Cheech's stash, what's the overall focus? I know Cheech mentioned a little bit, but maybe Lisa share a little bit what you're doing, maybe on the raise side. And he mentioned big Chicharron that's coming out and the Last Prisoner project.
So we have launched the brand in 4 states, and we're very diligent about how we do things. We want things to really be right. So we've got Colorado, California, Washington State, and Nevada on board. We're now moving into several new states in the next few months, and we're also very, very excited about the CBD brand, which we will take nationwide as well as worldwide. So we're looking to raise some money to really expand and blow out the brand in the next year or so, and we have opportunities for the right people. And you can hang out with Cheech, right, Cheech? They can hang out with you?
That's right, especially the ones with a lot of money.
Well, you got a lot of those on the call from in a global audience.
We like them. Help us get good weed to you.
Yes, yes, yeah. But our mission, Jim, is really all about cannabis, and we feel this is such an exciting time in the industry, and for those people who have the appetite to get in on the ground floor, you know, whether it's our brand or something else, because we are going to change the world. And it's all going to happen in the next, 4 to 5, 10 years as this industry grows. And it's very exciting. And we're very committed to sharing the magic and the wonderful benefits of cannabis with everybody in the world.
The amazing thing is that we have made such great medical strides and medical applications through this, with it still being federally illegal and not being allowed to experiment, with that or do clinical tests. This has all come out on its own, So once we get to the legally federally, we're going to make incredible progress.
Yeah. So we're setting, we're doing great now, but we're setting the path towards that. And after, as you said, Cheech, it becomes federally legal, well, this industry will explode.
Right. And so how can people get involved if they wanted to reach out for investing opportunities or have further questions?
So just go to our website, cheechesstash.com. You can reach it through cheechesstash.com or cheechesprivatestash.com. And right on the homepage, we have a click through for anybody who's interested in reaching out to us and getting more information about investing.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you both joining us. Cheech from your confines and Lisa. So please, we welcome you anytime.
Lisa's hiding in New York. She lives in the subway now.
Right.
It's empty, right?
Yeah, really. She rides it up and down all day. Goes back to the Bronx.
Don't tell my secrets, Cheech. Thank you, Jim, for having us. Thank you so much. This is a great webinar, and so happy to be with other people of kind and cannabis devotees. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll check in with you anytime we got something new.
All right, please do. All right,
man.
Next time. All right,
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Peace out.
See you soon, Cheech.
Okay, see you soon.
All right, everyone. That wraps up our speaker portion of the show today. I hope you all enjoyed all these credible speakers as much as I did. And if Cheech wants to stay on, hey, you are more than welcome to stay on and watch the rest of the show. We are now going to switch over to the investor pitch competition. I would like to now introduce Morgan Paxhia, who is going to be your moderator, and I will be back with you after the winners are announced to lead you into the networking portion of the day. So Morgan is the managing director and chief investor of Poseidon Asset Management, one of the longest running funds in the cannabis industry. With over 10 years experience in investing in finance, Morgan has developed a deep understanding of individual company analysis, portfolio construction, and risk mitigation. Since 2012, he has dedicated his investment focus primarily to the cannabis industry. Given the limited amount of information in this emerging vertical, the lack of institutional research, and relative industry immaturity, Morgan embraces an active approach and working closely with companies. He utilizes a boots on the ground methodology to better understand individual companies and the industry. And through his extensive travel across the US and Canada, reviewing hundreds of business plans and overseeing several existing cannabis investments, Morgan has developed Poseidon Investments methodology tailored specific to the business of cannabis. Poseidon's proprietary process is driven by the time spent in industry and the considerable data collected over the last several years. He has created frameworks for analysis depending on subsector, company stage, and participation across the capital spectrum through our database of contacts, valuations, metrics, and other relevant factors. So that is an amazing experience. We are looking forward to you doing this pitch competition with us. So Morgan, over to you.
Great. Thank you, Jim. Hello, everyone. As Jim mentioned, I will be the moderator for the medical cannabis investment pitch competition. Excited to be here today on this webinar where we have 9 experienced investors, many of whom I've been on panels with over the years and worked with on various portfolio companies in overlapping capacities. So great list of investors who are judges and joined by additional investors and sources of capital watching from around the world. We have 8 companies that were selected from over 40 companies that applied, and we believe we have a great cross-section of companies that we'll be presenting today. So first, I will just be going over the format, and then I will get into to the judges themselves, and then why we're all here, the presenting companies. So first thing, I will be giving an introduction to each judge, who will have about a minute to introduce themselves. Please be mindful of that minute. I will be monitoring that closely. Then I will be introducing each presenting company and presenter. Just keep in mind, each company will have a total of 10 minutes, 5 minutes for presentation and 4 minutes for Q&A. So judges, please be mindful of that. So maybe initially just try to keep it to 1 question. And so we can be respectful of time. After all 8 presentations are done, the judges in the audience will both be voting for the presentation that they choose to be ranked number 1. While the audience is voting, you'll actually get a little pop-up on your screen, so you'll be able to vote. I'll be then asking each judge for their opinion as well. After we're done with that process, we will announce the winning presenter, both selected by the judges, and the winning presenter selected by the audience. Okay, so that's the scoop for today. I will come up to the each judge by alphabetical order. This is by no means ranked by anything other than alphabetical. First, we have Daniel Sachs, who's the founder and president of Sensi Properties.
I think I'm unmuted now, sorry.
Okay.
How you doing? So founded Sensi Properties, the first cannabis real estate investment company in Canada, focused in that part of the space, in sale leasebacks and debt finance within the cannabis space as well. Angel investor and invested in a number of different companies, advised a couple companies, stuff like that. Very excited to be here. Thank you very much for having me, and thank you everyone for tuning in.
Great. Well, you are very mindful of time. Thank you. Next, we have Dr. David Cunic, who is the CEO of UCS Advisors.
How you doing, everyone? Dr. David Cunic, CEO and co-founder of UCS Advisors and Investor Relations. We are an investor relations advisory company where we work with high net worth individuals, both domestically and internationally, finding them deal flow in the cannabis and hemp sector. I'm proud to say that myself, I've been involved in the cannabis sector for 11 years now. I've actually started 7 different cannabis companies in 5 different states, and I've actually raised over $20 million just for my own companies. And we really look forward to hearing the pitch competition for today, see if any of our investors are interested in any of the companies today. Thank you for having me today, Morgan and Brad.
Great, thank you. Next up, we have Evan Enerman, Managing Director of Sands Lane Capital.
Thanks, Morgan. Hey, Sandslane Capital. This is Evan Enerman. We're a purpose-driven venture firm focused on early-stage consumer brands within cannabis and hemp. I've been investing and advising in the cannabis space now for the past 6 years across a few different platforms. Excited to be here and looking forward to the companies. Thanks, Morgan.
Great. Good to see you, Evan.
Good to see you.
Up next, we have Frank Sid, founder of CrowdChayne.
Hi, my name is Frank Sid, and I'm the founder of CrowdChayne. CrowdChayne is a crowdfunding portal. We focus on primarily startups, companies looking for revenue. We also have a broker-dealer as well. We've been able to participate in the last few years in a handful of companies in the cannabis space, particularly in the medical cannabis space that have gone on to go public. So I'm very happy to be here and excited to see what's out.
Fantastic. Next, we have John Nemanic, who's a partner at Green Coast Capital.
John, you'll have to unmute. There you go.
We can see you talking, John. We can't hear you, though. Still can't hear you. Yep, almost.
Yeah, geez, I've been having some issues with my equipment. Apologize for that. Just wanted to say it was really great hearing from Cheech. My background, technology, 3 different public exits. I've been in cannabis for the last 5 years. I've invested in various different sectors. Green Coast Capital is an amalgam of 4 family offices. One of the offices was formed by a very extremely successful cannabis investor, and then a couple others. We've all invested in the sector. So we're looking at primarily early stage at this time right now. We also do pipes into public companies as well.
Great. Thank you. Up next, Josh Kincaid, capital market analyst at The Talking Hedge.
Thank you. Yeah, Talking Hedge is a podcast kind of focus on the business side. Everything is looked at the lens of finance. So The Talking Hedge is a podcast, but the advisory firm that I run is called Superchronics, and it's pivoted over the years. So right now, post-COVID, we're trying to focus on as many non-cannabis companies. Up in Canada, we're working with an airline, transporting plants and product coast to coast, or the World Trade Center's export store. And so excited to see what companies are pitching and what's out there.
Great. Thank you, Josh. Up next, we have Joyce Cenali, partner and chief operating officer at Big Rock.
Hey, everybody. Good to be here. So yes, Morgan and I are actually usually right down the street from each other in Hayes Valley in San Francisco. I'm chatting with you guys today from a farm project that we operate up in Sonoma. We are investors in the space since 2016, both via syndications and a number of family offices. We've invested in about 28 deals, mostly focused on California, plant touching, brands and surrounding technology and intellectual property. We really love cultivation. So I'm loving the background. We're all got our like flower crowns on. But yeah, I'm excited to be here and participate and get to know some new companies. Thanks for having me.
Great. I look forward to when we can be neighbors again in Hayes Valley.
I know, me too.
Up next, we have Sheri Orlowitz, founding partner of Artemis Holdings Group.
I hope I'm unmuted.
You are.
Yep.
You're good to go.
Okay, well, it's great to be here and great to see new friends and old friends. Artemis Holdings Group is a private investment and strategic advisory firm that I founded after acquiring about a dozen businesses, raising $100 million in the manufacturing and services industry. I got into cannabis in 2016 and made my first investment into MJ Freeway before it became Akerna, and realized that capital was a problem. So I've undertaken some tough capital raises, including for Akerna and Jessica Billingsley. Our portfolio consists today of a half a dozen companies, including New Frontier, Thrive, Witty. The kind of investments we like to make is first and foremost management teams and what I call early growth. I'm also the founder and chairman of the board of the Council for Federal Cannabis Regulation, The goal is to bring CPG companies into the industry and utilize their resources to work around an issue right now, which is mainstreaming hemp constituents. And we believe that will help the legalization and make the market a much more trusted market when names such as Kellogg's and Coca-Cola are making CBD products like cranberry ocean spray is doing today. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sheri. Okay, and then up next we have Skip Sanzeri, Managing Director of Multiverse Capital.
Hey everybody, thanks Morgan and Brad as well for putting this on. Wonderful turnout, and just love these sorts of things. So my background, I entered the space in 2013, actually, and ended up taking a company public in the space back then, which was kind of early and odd, but it was a success at the public level. You know, moved forward and kept in the space in a variety of areas, and then recently launched Multiverse Capital, which is a new firm, and where we have put together 3 funds. One is a medicinal fund, one's recreational, one's ancillary. We did that strategy because we had heard that investors sometimes want to mitigate their risk, and you know, we've talked to investors that may not want to invest in recreational, but may want to invest in medicinal, or others that don't want to touch the plant at all and want to stay ancillary. So we put the fund together. We're moving ahead now and really having a great time in this industry. So looking forward to seeing some great companies here. Thank you.
All right. Well, that's our full panel of judges. So let's bring on the companies. Up first, we have Alex Hudagalong, the Chief Scientific Officer of Levadura Biotechnology. Just as a reminder, again, 5 minutes per presentation, 4 minutes for Q&A. And I think we're just getting everything teed up right now. So Alex, whenever you're ready, I'm not sure if you're unmuted at this point, but it looks like they're getting you pretty well set up here.
There, can you hear me?
Yes, great.
Okay.
All right.
Good afternoon, everyone, for Morgan and the judges for being here, and the attendees, of course. My name is Alex Hudagalong, and today I'll tell you about Levadura Biotechnology, which will be the go-to provider of cannabinoids for the changing cannabis market. Oops. There it is. Uh-oh. I was at the end of my... There it is. Let's start with our team. As CEO with a PhD in biochemistry, I bring the technical expertise of yeast genetic engineering and industrial biotech, while Brian and Matt lead business development, finance, and healthcare. Strategy and finance. The 3 of us have worked together extensively and have taken an industrial biotech process from concept to commercialization. So what are we going to do for the cannabis market? We all know the cannabis market will be huge, and the non-flower market segments, like concentrates and edibles, are expected to be worth billions of dollars in the next 2 years. Both of these markets rely on a consistent and high-quality source of purified cannabinoids. Pharmaceutical applications of cannabis are expected to be worth over $5 billion in the next 7 years as well. Unfortunately, there's a problem. Consistency in chemical composition is one of the greatest challenges to plant-based drug development. Which leads to the question, how will the market efficiently source pure and consistent cannabinoids for these applications? I think we all agree that the cannabis plant is amazing and provides benefits unlike any other plant. However, as a means of cannabinoid production, there's lots of room for improvement. The whole process takes several months, with growing being the rate limiting step. It's a labor, water, and energy intensive process requiring a large footprint, which, if you're outdoors, is subject to the weather and normal agriculture-related environmental issues, as well as all the issues that Chris Booth from Theracann raised. When it comes to extraction and purification, there are numerous substances that need to be removed: mold, lipids and waxes, pesticides, heavy metals, and aflatoxins, just to start. The end result is an often inconsistent cannabinoid mixture based on the plant and the quality of the crop. Levadura solves all these problems. Our expertise lies in our ability to genetically engineer yeast for a fermentation process. Each engineered yeast will produce 1 cannabinoid in a 1-week fermentation and purification cycle. Production will require a small footprint and will be a sterile and highly controlled process in fermentation tanks. All this without the known plant-based contaminants. Why is this important? Because levedura as a means of production can make a big difference to your bottom line. Plant-based production of cannabinoids is handicapped by the time, usually several months, it takes to get product. The only way to increase output is to have better plants or more space. Furthermore, as you will hear from Zach at Polar Extracts today, extraction can be a bottleneck to cannabinoid production. The result, cost of manufacturing for a kilogram of cannabinoid, in this case THC, on the order of thousands. The advantage of a levedura process is its speed and flexibility. A 1-week production cycle allows for more than 50 cycles a year to ensure flexibility to market demands. A production facility can be located in a small warehouse with enough capacity to produce 50 to 75 kilos of product with each run. And at the end of our fully funded development timeline, we expect to be able to produce a purified cannabinoid at around $350 a kilo. As a technology company, one of our key components is our intellectual property. We have recently filed a US patent to protect the core of our technology shown below. The key advantage of our approach is how we engineer yeast to convert the input, in our case vegetable oil, to the output, a cannabinoid, and I'll elaborate on that here. Any kind of vegetable oil is composed of triglycerides. Each triglyceride is composed of 1 molecule of glycerol and 3 fatty acids. It's the fatty acid component that is valuable for our technology, which I show you here with the tail portion highlighted in red. By genetically engineering our yeast to control how they consume fatty acids, we have developed proof of concept production of CBGA, THCA, and the cannabinoid precursor olivotolic acid. I've highlighted where the red tail ends up on a mature cannabinoid. I'll tell you more about why that's important on the next slide. By controlling how much of the fatty acid tail we leave behind, we can make rare cannabinoids, such as those of the Fiorello class, which I show you here, with a longer tail shown in green. THCP is found naturally in the plant and has recently been shown to be 33 times more active than THC through binding to the CB1 receptor. Our approach also allows for producing novel cannabinoids. Most plant-based oils contain unsaturated fatty acids, such as oleic, with 1 unsaturation, which is a major component of canola oil, and linoleic, with 2 unsaturations, which is found in sunflower oil. By producing cannabinoids with unusual tails from these fatty acids, the technology would be ideal for pharma applications. To provide some context, I'm showing you the structure of agulamic acid, or lenabasum, in the drug pipeline of Corbus Pharmaceuticals. Notice its unusual tail. It's at phase 2 or phase 3 trials for several diseases whereby inflammation is a critical component of their pathologies. This brings me to our ask.
Yeah, just
based on the progress.
About 5 minutes, okay?
Yep. This brings me to our ask. Based on the progress of our seed round, we are raising $2 million for our Series A, which will be used to produce the following goals: purified CBGA for commercial development, production of CBDA and THCA in fermenters, development of commercial partnerships, and the granting of our US patent, and research to support new patent applications. The pie chart shows use of funds during that time, the bulk of it going to personnel, supplies, and equipment. I'll stop here and take questions.
Great, thank you. Okay, judges, got about 4 minutes, so try to keep it to 1 a person.
Or should I continue sharing screen?
I'm happy to kick off. Really interesting presentation. I really loved the slide you had regarding extraction versus their process and then the cost implications. What is the CapEx requirements and sort of the licensing requirements to do the process?
So for at the cost of goods of about $350 a kilo, we're talking about our own production facility there, where we would be doing fermentation and extraction all within one facility, and the capex for that kind of a facility would be somewhere around 10 million for those kinds of yields that we discussed in that slide there.
Great. And do you need a cannabis, like a operating license to do so, or a DE?
I believe so. At this stage, I'm not so sure what the licensing needs will be at this stage, because this is a kind of an unusual process within the whole production workflow of producing cannabinoids, which generally applies to the flower and the plant. So now coming from a biosynthetic source, it's not exactly clear to me at this stage what those requirements will be, and hopefully, we'll get some light shed on that as we continue down the process.
Hi, Alex. That was a fantastic presentation. Clearly very interesting stuff. What is the plan and timeline to bringing this to market look like? Based on from where you are, what are the kind of milestones and timeline associated with this?
So I'll just speak about what we're trying to do for our Series A. For that particular raise, we again are focused on making CBGA at quantities sufficient for commercial development, and that just means that we're providing samples to any interested parties that would like to see the quality and nature of our CBGA that we're producing. And the timeline for what we're saying for our Series A is about 1 year to 1.5 years. And at that point in time, it's not clear to me what the market demand is for CBGA at this stage. I know it has some traction within the marketplace, but it's not a significant player right now. I have no idea what that's going to look like in 1.5 years. But we believe at that point in time, what we are planning to do is go to our next raise. But because we've been able to demonstrate that we are able to make CBGA, we envision a inflection in value whereby we'll need the additional money to start developing production of CBDA and THCA, which will be, of course, commercially relevant within the marketplace today. And that timeline is about 2 years. So total timeline from including Series A all the way through the development of CBDA and THCA at commercial scale in fermenters, we see a timeline of about 2.5 to 3 years.
Alex,
Having said that, 1.5 years from now, I have no idea if CBGA will have any type of significant presence in the marketplace, and if we're commercially, if we're at a commercial production scale or level for CBGA, then there's chances for commercialization there as well.
So it's a good presentation. I've seen a couple companies similar to this trying to get that consistency down, highlighting a couple of things that you said that were spot on. Obviously, you identified the goals and you knew what the investor audience wanted with the IP. You understand the market. What I'd like to know is about needs and roadblocks. You kind of mentioned what sets the business apart, having rare cannabinoids, which is important with consistency and accurate dosing, I would throw in there as well. Added the team and products and created a summary with call to action. But what I want to know is more about what sets you apart and some of the needs and roadblocks that you might face to differentiate you from a competitor.
Right. So there are a number of biosynthetic competitors within this marketplace, which you've highlighted, Josh. What's unusual about our approach is the IP that we're talking about, and that we're going from fatty acids to cannabinoids. And I don't want to dive into the biosynthetic pathway, but there are metabolic advantages in doing that. And by doing that, what we envision is ultimately there's going to be a higher productivity for our process. And in the actual theoretical yield of a cannabinoid from a fatty acid is higher than the traditional route of a biosynthetic approach, which is from sugar. So by having this higher yield, I think we see our advantages are in the productivity of a fermentation, which allows for a 1-week cycle in a typical fermentation, which allows for a significant number of production runs each year, which ultimately is what's going to drive down cost of manufacturing, because it's that productivity or increased productivity, which is one of the significant factors in how much it's going to cost to actually make a cannabinoid within a certain amount of time, based on the input of labor and materials and utilities and capex or depreciation of capex, dividing all those costs by how much product you're able to make in a certain amount of time is really what's going to drive down that cost of manufacturing. So that's what we see as our major advantage moving forward. Great. Having said that, we need the funding to really to make that a reality. So, but that's what we see as our major advantage.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, everybody. We will be transitioning to the next speaker. Alex, just so you know, and for all the presenters, there are more questions that are coming in the chat and also in the Q&A. So you definitely want to take a look at that, because there's certainly biotech, I think, is a very curious category. So there's some good questions to check out there. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Up next, we have Bob Craig, who is the CEO of PayQuick, and we'll get him set up here. So just all the attendees, appreciate all the questions. I do see them coming in. Just trying to make sure we're staying mindful of the clock here so we can give everyone a fair chance to do their presentation and let the judges ask their questions. Same thing for judges. Be mindful of your other judges to get their questions in as well. So there will be some more time later on. There's networking afterwards as well. So there's plenty more time to dig in. So again, up next we have Bob Craig from PayQuick. They're just getting his presentation set up. No, not sure if there's, there we go. Perfect. Bob, are you?
Yeah, I'm ready to go.
Great.
Can you see?
Okay. Over to you.
You can see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks, Morgan. Here to introduce to you guys PayQuick Financial Network. As many of you are well aware, running a cannabis business in a newly regulated industry is very, very difficult. Marrying that with banking, which is also highly regulated and really hasn't figured out the rules of what to do in cannabis is also challenging. So putting the two together, running a cannabis business and then trying to manage your money and all the things that you want to do from a financial perspective, very difficult. So PayQuick is part of the solution there. Our mission is to provide a comprehensive solution that is compliant and also pulls together all the functional things that a company needs to manage their cash, make their payroll, do treasury operations, etc. Our vision is that we will create this network effect and will help the industry grow. PayQuick is a little different than other companies that are in this business. We are a direct banking solution to the cannabis industry. We're backed by national banks and local banks as well to give us access to the Federal Reserve and other systems like that. We have an executive team with a deep experience in payments and in cannabis. So what we're doing is we're providing that expertise to companies that are trying to build their business, grow their business, manage their supply chain across the cannabis industry. We're serving all license types and specifically focused on MSOs. And we've built a technology platform that delivers compliance as a service, not only to the customers, but also to the banks that we work with. The executive team, I consider myself a payment geek. I'm a banker from way back, worked at very large banks and also in fintech companies, working on how to leverage new technology into emerging businesses. Keith Marks is also on the screen with us. He's coming from Riverside County over with Cheech. He's also wearing the flag like I've got on here. Keith was our founder back in 2014 and is the visionary around PayQuick. Also on our board is also an investor that many of you guys know, David Friedman, who is the CEO of Panther Capital and also is running some other businesses in the cannabis space as well. He has a long history of cannabis business. So as you guys know, cannabis and banking have not always met on even keel. And what we've seen is many banks have gotten into the business, some to quickly escape as they realized how difficult it was. What we're seeing is banks having a partial solution in here and maybe not always the most compliant solution. So PayQuick is there to do that. Our financial network crosses all of the things that a business may need, from consumer payments, the core treasury solutions, settlement solutions for labs and exchanges and marketplaces, and also investment solutions for those that are compiling cash. For those that are not compiling cash, but they're looking for short-term, medium-term, and long-term loans, we have partners that we work with to build that into the capability for all of our customers. As I mentioned before, our target market is all license types. We work around the supply chain to help every kind of business transact with each other in a compliant manner. So they can move money from each other, they can move invoices, et cetera, so that they can pay each other and settle their obligations. It helps for recurring business. As more people are on the PayQuick network, more people will transact on the PayQuick network. The core products that we offer from a banking perspective include receivables, payables. We have a nationwide network so that you can manage your businesses on a state-by-state basis, as well as a roll-up for MSOs looking at their business across multiple states. As I alluded to before, we do something that we call Quick Pays, which is electronic invoicing and payment, really very important for the B2B solution set for transacting and solidifying the supply chain movement. This is where PayQuick exists right now in the green states. This looks very much like the map that Emily put up earlier. And what you can see is that we're focused primarily on states where adult use has been enacted in a law. We talk a little bit about our addressable market. California, obviously the largest market in the country, last year did about $3 billion in transactions. And our deposits last year in California were about 200 million. So we're running about 7% of that market. We're expanding broadly into other states that are coming online. Nevada, Florida, and New Jersey, very important for us as we expand in 2020 and 2021.
You just passed 5 minutes, just so you know.
Okay. Partnership's very important to us. The company that you keep, a lot to build that we did to work with these partners. A little bit about our revenue model. We charge fees very much like a bank would. Our costs are fixed and variable, people, as well as fees from our banks to access the Federal Reserve, et cetera. We have been in business for a long time. We have a very strong growth, especially this year. Our growth has been phenomenal. We're doing about 350 million in national deposits right now. We expect that to continue to grow for the rest of the year, leaving us with about 5 million in revenue and an EBITDA positive. There's some transaction volume. We're very proud of how much we've done. And as I say in the investment world, the dogs are eating the dog food to multiple transactions, deposits, et cetera. We're looking for $5 million for growth. Here's a pie chart of where we're going to spend that growth in expanding across the US and investing in more sales as well as more network opportunities. Key parts of our business leadership team, a moat of 5 years being in this business, compliant money transmission licenses across the country, and the top MSOs, compliant technology, and a supply chain network integration that helps the business grow. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Okay, judges.
I have a quick question, Morgan. So Bob, for the 5 million raise, what's the minimum tranche you're looking for, and how are you setting up? What kind of investment is it exactly? You doing a note? Are you doing debt? Like what exactly? How are you setting that up, Bob?
We're thinking that it's going to be equity, and we're looking for participation from a number of different investors. Could be 2 or 3. We're going first to our existing investors, obviously, for follow-on to their original investments. But we would love strategics to come in as well. But your short answer is it's equity.
And how much equity are you looking to give up for the 5 million?
I think it's. I think some of that's negotiable as we look at the current valuation.
Thank you.
Hey, Bob, you mentioned that you have some integration with the Fed and the other banks. How are you handling wires and that sort of thing?
Yeah, we're supported by national banks and also some state banks and credit unions. And so they give us access to the back end on that. So we are a direct bank relationship to our customers, and then we have access to the Federal Reserve through our bank partners. We're not reselling their product. They're not, opening accounts for the bank, for the MSOs or the MRBs. That's all on the PayQuick platform.
Thanks.
Hey Bob, how you doing? This is Evan. Seen you guys grow now for a couple years, so congratulations on all the success. How many active clients do you have, and where do you see the growth growth within your sales process for additional clients? And are they primarily commercial clients, or do you also provide consumer solutions as well?
Yeah, great question, and appreciate your awareness of PayQuick's history. In the beginning, we were, and Forbes magazine actually called us the PayPal of pot. And about a year and a half ago, we came back to and said, consumer programs are very, very hard. You know, Capital One, Citibank, Bank of America does consumer programs, and the compliance around those is even tougher. As you're doing a stored value or trying to take credit cards related to consumer transactions. So we've partnered with folks that are doing consumer-based transactions for retailers. But what we saw in our customer base was this vertically integrated types of companies and also multi-state operators. So we leveraged the platform, which was already doing those payment and other banking transactions, to expand into serve those customers. So we're working with cultivators all the way to retailers, as well as ancillary businesses, packaging, et cetera. So yeah, our focus on consumers is really to help those that are aligned with consumers in terms of a product for the cannabis industry, for those of our customers that have retail dispensary and other retail applications.
Bob, real quick, before we have time for one more question, can you just unshare your screen when you have a moment?
Share.
Unshare it.
Unshare. There you go.
There you go. Perfect. Judges, we got time for one last quick one.
I guess I'd like to know, in the eventuality with federal legalization, what's the game plan with that? Looks like your biggest competitors are ADP and a bank. And so how do you kind of ease investor uncertainty with financial legalization and your ability to continue as a going concern?
Yeah, great question. Again, one of the things that we're trying to focus on primarily is, you know, how do we serve those banks that are looking to get into the space, so we can help them without needing them to learn the 5 years of history that we have. We can actually help people enter the space by using our platform, our automated compliance, our money transmission licenses, et cetera. So it'd be very, very, very hard to build this if, you know, the administration's
great.
Sounds like, Bob, you cut out there a little bit, so I'm going to jump in to try and I think, Josh, that was your question, and try and finish off for Bob. Our platform is really built in order to work with banks and other financial institutions. PayQuick is really more than anything a B2B compliance company. Onboarding and ongoing maintenance of the transactions is very difficult to build and scale. It's very expensive for smaller institutions and banks to get into this business and build what we've been able to do, to electronically triangulate the transactions, to verify what's going through, to do all the AML, BSA reporting. Smaller institutions really can't do that. And even some of the larger ones, it's very difficult to put together those platforms. We've built that out and believe that our platform, regardless of federal legalization or not, is always going to have this compliance requirement, and that we will become a very integral part to all of the different banks or credit unions that want to be in business as being that transactional partner that's doing all the reporting and the transactions.
Thank you, Keith. Okay. Appreciate the time, guys. We are going to move on to our next presentation. And hopefully, Bob, you still look a little bit frozen, just so you know for when, for later on. Up next, oh, there you go, you're better now. Up next, we have Davina Kanoe, CEO and co-founder of Element Apothic.
And just getting everything ready.
We can hear you just fine. Yeah, looks like your screen is coming up right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, how's everybody doing today? So I'm Davina, the CEO and co-founder of Element Apothic.
Element Apothec is really a new disruptive brand in the CBD space, meeting the needs of today's conscious consumer, bringing the intersection of the need for clean beauty and wellness products into the CBD space. And our mission is really to enrich lives by creating clean, safe, and effective products, combining science with the healing power of nature. And as you can see, my story with the plant started a long time ago. I grew up realizing the benefits of this plant early on. My dad was a Vietnam veteran and would tell me pakalolo, as they call it in Hawaii, without it that he couldn't leave the house, that he couldn't sleep. And so I've always believed in the medicinal values of the plant. And today I'm so excited to be bringing Element Apothec. We were born in a kitchen, not a lab. And when my aunt was diagnosed with several medical conditions, she realized that the she needed to put in and on her body were not meeting her needs. She went on a mission to understand plant-based medicine, cannabis, and everything that could possibly help her. Today, we're bringing those products that she created, over 40 custom formulations that helped herself and countless others from the kitchen into the world. The problem is that most consumers today don't know who or what to trust. As we all know, CBD holds a lot of promise, but so many brands are not living up to it. Personal care products are filled with toxins and harmful ingredients. There are low quality products flooding the market, not just in CBD, but in the personal care space with little to no transparency. Many products have no oversight, and there's often an absence of ingenuity with minimal product variation with so many white labeled products on the market. The solution is Element Apothec, the trustworthy brand that conscious consumers are demanding. We're bringing clean and safe products to the market with complete transparency. All of our formulations have been reformulated with medical and scientific oversight, and we're using other phytocannabinoids, not just CBD, but CBG and CBN into the mix of our products to make them as effective as possible. Our never ever promise means that we will never ever use any harmful or toxic ingredients in the products we create. And that's really important to today's consumer. Not only are we bringing great products, but we're committed to providing consumer education as well. We've assembled a team of over 60 years relevant experience in the CPG, e-commerce space, as well in the medical cannabis space. This includes Dr. Swathi, who is our Chief Science Officer, is also an integrative pharmacist and works with universities across the US, introducing cannabis into traditional pharmacology for students to incorporate that. We also have our Chief Medical Advisor, Dr. Marvin Singh, who's a dual certified medical integrative doctor to provide that medical oversight that is really needed in this space today. And how does Element Apothec stack up? We know there are hundreds of companies in this space, but we truly feel that we are meeting the needs of today's consumer. And the market opportunity, as everybody here knows, is huge. It's expected to grow to $16 billion by 2022. But not only are we focused on the CBD market and hemp-based market, we really tap into the wellness market with a $3.5 trillion market reach in this space. So we feel we're positioned to have an incredible opportunity. We do have aggressive financial plans, but we expect that we will be able to meet those and far exceed those with an omni-channel sales approach, direct to consumer, as well as B2B, and also licensing some of the formulations that we have. We have hit several milestones to date. We are ready to launch with 6 products. We're beginning our online sales in the next 30 days. We do have several retail commitments already, including a new store called Showcase by Cal Ethos. We've also received CertClean certification already and are working on other certifications. And we've established key partnerships, including Tag One for transparency, showing all of our ingredients from the beginning all the way until it gets into the consumer's hands. We are currently raising $500,000 as a convertible note, and anybody can invest from $100 all the way up to $107,000. You may be asking yourself, why Element Apothec, especially in a market that has so many other brands? It's trust, plain and simple. Invest now and join us on our journey to set a new standard for clean science. Element Apothec, never, ever anything but good.
Perfect timing. Thank you.
Yes.
Judges, you can feel free to ask away.
Davina, may I ask you a question?
Yes.
Just checking to see if you can hear me. So one thing you recognize right off the bat is how to establish is that you have a huge issue with consumer trust. How do you think you can establish consumer trust against brands such as Aveda, which have a pretty good reputation in the marketplace, or any other established brand where folks have come to trust that brand?
I mean, I think a lot of it is through education. We're already starting that with our social media and influencers, but also building the team with a focus on medical and science education and background to provide the insight. And really, it comes down to consumer awareness, because I think people, especially consumers, don't understand all of the ingredients that they're putting in and on their body, and educating people. And there's over 1,400 toxic ingredients that are banned in Europe and Canada that are allowed here in personal care products that people use every single day. And so a lot of that is really educating people in terms of how to read your labels. How do you know what products are trustworthy or not trustworthy? And how do we elevate not just the CBD space, but have higher requirements for the personal care space in general?
A follow-up question. So you put a lot of stock in education. Do you have an education plan beyond social media platforms?
Yes, we do. We actually are just got started a show on a channel called Razzle. That we're going to be, it's a cannabis network, doing a show called Contemporary Cannabis. And a lot of that is really educating, not just on cannabis and CBD, but just in terms of ingredients and products in general. We are assembling a team of writers to build out a knowledge base as well, and not depending just on social media, but utilizing that as an access point to disseminate information.
I have a follow-up to what Sheri just asked. As someone who is in the medical field by trade and still invest in medical companies, they have qualified CEUs right now for CBD education. And for your raise, one, are you targeting any type of medical practitioners? And two, for the education, are you going to do what some other CBD companies are doing and trying to get some certified CEUs to offer physicians and other healthcare practitioners?
It's something that we started to consider and explore. We haven't looked at it in terms of that much depth, but it's definitely something that we have kind of put onto the thought process in terms of how do we actually elevate ourselves in the educational, medical, and scientific aspects of it. So again, it's not something that we've actually done yet, but it is something that we are exploring at this point.
Where do you manufacture this, and how do you scale it? And great presentation.
Yes, right. So our manufacturer is based in Utah. We have a capacity to scale as large as we need. We can produce from 1,000 products to several thousand products a day if needed to be able to meet the demands of the consumer, as well as with our 3PL shipping and logistics facility as well.
Thank you, Davina. Can you just do me a favor to unshare your screen? And then we have time for one last quick question.
Hey, this is Frank Sid. I have a question, Davina. Great presentation. I do know that with anything within the health and beauty space, it's obviously very intensive capital-wise for marketing. And your guys are asking for $500,000. How do you guys plan to deploy that, taking the marketing into account?
Yeah, we've already started to put together a pretty strong marketing plan. We're working with the current marketing agency now, and so a big portion of the raise actually is going specifically to marketing, because we understand that in order to create a presence that we need to invest a lot in that aspect. And so that will continue. We expect that the $500,000 will last us approximately 6 months for our runway. And at that point, needing to go back and raise a larger, raise as we need to scale both in product innovation, R&D, as well as marketing.
Great.
What was the name of the marketing company again?
We're working with Circle Media Marketing for now, but we're looking to expand as well and talking to a couple other companies specifically in the cannabis space that understand some of the challenges that we are currently facing with advertising.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you so much. Davina, make sure to follow the chats. I just see some questions coming through over there as well. Up next, we have Josh Snyder, CEO of the Neva Labs.
Okay, thank you everyone here we go, let me get the slide deck. Okay, yep, thank you, Brad, I appreciate the opportunity to speak today about our company, the Neva Labs. Our company has two major focuses. The first is the Neva Labs, which is a California licensed cannabis testing lab. We're located in Los Angeles. And the second major thrust of our company is a contract research division, which is serving pharmaceutical biotech as well as cannabis and CBD companies. And our mission really is to provide excellent testing to the California cannabis market and CBD market. Also, we provide product development services to the product development support for cannabis and CBD companies, and then brand elevating research for the industry too. And what really makes us different is the focus on quality, customer service, and collaborative partnerships where we're helping to solve problems, not just do testing. We also have the best technology available, and we're very unique in that 2/3 of our team has advanced degrees and accomplished research backgrounds. So the opportunity for testing is, a $4 billion and growing market in cannabis in California. Estimated revenues for testing labs last year were about 100 million. And we also can test products for CBD, hemp, nutraceutical, and food and beverage industries. Now, the second opportunity is contract research, and our clients are pharma and biotech companies who have an annual budget of about $190 billion globally for research, and 25% of that is outsourced to contract research labs like ours. And that number is growing rapidly. The outsourcing trend is continuing with 11% annual growth in that market. And so we have 4 major revenue streams. In the early days, cannabis testing is what we've always anticipated to be our major revenue stream. However, that could change very quickly. We have hemp and CBD testing, consulting revenues, and the contract research we anticipate becoming by far the biggest source of revenue going forward, with the potential for a total of 74 million annual revenue by 2024 for the company. We're unique again because most labs derive all or most of their revenue from testing. However, we're much more diversified. We have contract research, consulting, and other revenue streams. And of course, every testing lab provides testing. A few provide troubleshooting, and even fewer help companies with product development. But what makes us very unique is that we provide research for cannabis and CBD companies, and those are paid contracts. We've already had good traction in that area, and I don't know of any other testing lab that's also doing supporting drug development in pharmas and biotechs. So that's where we really set ourselves apart. So our background, we come from cannabis testing, contract research, pharma and biotech, and cancer drug development. That's what I was doing before I founded the company. And we have, again, PhDs with very accomplished research backgrounds. And the sales team we've brought on very recently has had excellent traction, really getting us going on sales. And you can see here, for the testing revenue here at the top, we're in kind of exponential growth phase. We received our license from the BCC in April. And since then, our revenue is increasing very quickly, especially since we just brought on the new sales team who's got us going in the right direction here, we believe. And contract research has been solely me bringing in some clients. I've signed about 172,000 in studies. That's been increasing very quickly. The month of July has been already by far our best quarter, with another 100,000 in proposals pending. And we also see this as perfect time for market entry too in the cannabis testing market, because we learned from mistakes of other labs. You know, we saw some things go wrong with the labs. We saved money and time from those lessons. And then we've also avoided pitfalls of early licensing. Some labs had problems with not being able to meet the requirements of compliance for the state and having damaged reputations or being suspended. And we also, during the pre-launch phase, we developed a number of services that other labs typically don't have. And what we've seen really bottom line is that we're offering some services that the market's been missing, which you can see in some testimonials here. We've worked with several major brands, and these companies have all really been at a lack to find a good research partner that is also a testing lab. So we found a good niche for ourselves here. And so to date, all of our funding has come from a single family and revenue that we've generated so far. And we're looking to raise $2 million in additional funding to grow the business rapidly. We see opportunities to really accelerate our research area of the company. We've seen a number of demand for some of our newer service offerings lately. And you know, that funding, 2/3 approximately would go to equipment, and then sales and marketing and new hires being the other sources or uses for funds. So that's all I have. Thank you very much. I've answered any questions.
Thank you, Josh.
I'll go. So great presentation, Josh. We work with a number of parties that you engage, and I saw testimonials from, so that's great. Going back to yeah, totally. The 10% of the market via 24 with a $74 million, revenue by then. Can you sort of break down what your thoughts are on, what audience that's going to come from? Is that going to be derived mostly from research parties where you're assisting them on the product development side, or the sort of more traditional, potency and, microbial tests and otherwise?
Sure. So that $74 million number on total revenue is, we're estimating about 2/3 of that or more to come from the research, with probably the biggest source of that coming from pharma and biotech. We've also had, cannabis and CBD companies that are a significant source of that contract research revenue too, and about a quarter to a third from testing.
And then on top of that, Josh, myself, I used to have a testing lab in Vegas, Denver. For your budget, how much of your budget are you going to actually put towards the lobbyist? Because one of the big issues in testing is you have a lot of growers that are anti-testing due to the cost of it. So how much of that budget of the money you're raising actually going to put towards the lobbyists to make sure that testing requirements are enforced and actually get increased over time as well too?
Sure. That's, I don't have a number for you offhand what that number needs to be. Yeah, that's a little bit out of my area. That would be probably a good question for our sales and marketing team.
Okay, no problem. Thank you though.
Yeah.
Hey, Josh, question for you. I mean, you have the analytical lab, which provides some revenue today. It doesn't seem like that's really a major focus for you in your growth. Is that an accurate statement? You're really focused on your contract research and biotech development and pharma development?
Well, I think that's the biggest opportunity, long term. However, I'm definitely not minimizing the opportunity with testing. It is a very good opportunity too. We're just devoting 2 different teams and sets of equipment, and ultimately two different spaces to those 2 different efforts. So my projection is that, in the next year, testing is probably a little bit bigger, but a couple years from now, research is bigger.
Yeah, I mean, just with that as a follow-up, your 10% of the market's a very large percentage of the market in a segment that is probably not where you're going to focus most of your time and attention. And I would maybe focus on the area that you see the fastest and greatest opportunity for you guys. It jumped out to me as maybe not where you're focusing your time anyway.
Right, sure. Well, yeah, I personally spend a lot more of my time on the research side, but our lab director is 100% on the testing side.
Josh, there are a number of CROs in the United States and Canada that have relatively good track records. How, as a new CRO, do you see yourself competing?
Sure. So the major source of business so far is from my network, from contract research and pharma and biotech. So that's already a very good base for us to draw on. But going forward, we do need to. We're forming partnerships with other CROs. We're getting a lot of referrals that way, and we're also going to be dedicating marketing and sales efforts. That's part of what the raise is for too. To that, and we also position ourselves as a niche CRO because we're taking on, smaller CROs are able to provide better attention to more difficult projects. That's where we come in, and we're also catering especially to any pharmas doing cannabinoid drug development, and we'll have some other niches for cancer drug development where we have specialized expertise too.
Great. Well, thank you, Josh. Okay. Very interesting. Thank you for sharing your screen already. Up next, we have Mike Simpson, CEO of Amura. And just again, a reminder, I have seen some chats, some additional questions, so make sure to check those out. Some Q&A as well. So it's always good to keep mind of those, some good questions.
Hi guys, hi Brad, and hi judges. Thanks very much for being here today. I assume you can hear me okay?
Good to go.
Brilliant. If you don't mind, I'm going to start with a very quick demo, and then I'm going to move, brilliant, my virtual device. So it'll be an interesting demo with the green screen. Then I'm going to go into the slides, so I'll be very quick. So my name is Mike Simpson. I'm co-founder and CEO of Amura. Amura is the next generation platform for the consumption of whole flower cannabis and hemp CBD. I spent 10 years in Tokyo designing and inventing new technologies for harm reduction for big tobacco, and then 5 years in California researching the cannabis industry for big tobacco. So I've been living this area called heat not burn for a long time. Now heat not burn is actually taking over the tobacco market, driven by the IQOS device by Philip Morris, which is launched in the US now, and actually just been given the FDA approval for harm reduction marketing. Amura is bringing heat not burn, clean, convenient consumption to the cannabis market, essentially. So a quick demo. The product itself is comprised of sticks and a device. It's very easy to use. You get one of the flower sticks with cannabis inside, and you place the flower stick inside the device. The device starts automatically. You can see that it's heating up by itself. Then in about 15-20 seconds, you can simply use the device by sucking on the flower stick, and you only inhale cannabinoids and terpenes. And then when you finish the session, you simply remove the stick and put the stick in the trash. No cleaning required whatsoever. So let me just share my screen now. Okay, the Amura platform. So we believe that the future is about whole flower. Everyone loves whole flower, but traditional forms of smoking like pre-rolls are unhealthy and unhygienic. And everyone loves a convenience of an oil vape pen, but their oil lacks provenance and the full flower entourage effect. Amura offers the best of both worlds, vape pen convenience with whole flower experience. We believe the future is whole flower using heat not burn. Amura flower sticks contain single strain 100% whole flower cannabis with no leaves, trim, or additives. And using Amura's heat not burn heating system, they release all the cannabinoids and terpenes to deliver the full entourage effect. They also taste fantastic. We believe the future of cannabis is about control. Every flower stick contains a small but precise amount of whole flower, allowing the consumer to control their experience based on their tolerance. Amura has been designed to deliver a social high, one that keeps you in the room, enhancing the moment while leaving you in control. Fine-tune your experience by layering sticks over an entire evening, like having a few glasses of wine. We believe the future is about a social high. Now, the new consumers, according to New Frontier data, the US market will double to around 30 billion in the next 5 years, a large proportion of which will come from new users who haven't used cannabis or haven't used it for years anyway. These consumers who haven't developed a tolerance for THC are often worried about losing control or getting too high. To most of these new users, the idea of combustion or setting fire to produce smoke will not be desirable. Amura is a perfect product for this new user as it offers control, which is hygienic and extremely easy to use. So the benefits of our social high, it uses flower and not oil. People like flower because it's natural. Amura combines the convenience of a vape pen with the benefits of a healthiest way to consume whole flower by simply heating it up. We have a controlled dose. Each flower stick contains an exact amount of pure whole flower, giving a reliable experience every time. And efficacy, studies show that the vaping whole flower is more efficacious for cannabinoid absorption than combustion. With heat not burn, you don't breathe in a huge cloud of smoke, you just inhale the pure cannabinoids and terpenes, and your body retains most of them. This also means that Amura is perfect for indoors and outdoors, as there's minimal vapor exhales. It's got a pleasant yet non-lingering smell. Amura is designed to be clean and hygienic, with each flower stick serving as a mouthpiece for a single use, which is perfect in today's COVID climate. Also, no cleaning is required ever because the flower stick doesn't come into contact with the heat source ever. Also, the flower sticks are certified rainforest friendly, fully compostable and biodegradable. So our business model is very simple. We're not touching the plant company. We're a tech company. We work with flower brands where flower sticks are simply a line extension to their existing brand portfolio. We make our money from healthy margins on the sale of the devices, leasing our filling equipment, the sale of empty flower sticks and packaging, and the sale of our in-house CBD brands, also white labeling for third-party CBD brands. Essentially, we're a razor blade model, and the return users is where our volume of pack sales really gets very interesting. We filed for a broad suite of internationally filed intellectual property, covering every aspect of our platform.
Mike, you're at your 5 minutes, just so you know.
Okay, and then just on the screen here is the THC brands that we're currently in market in California with, and our CBD brands as well. We select our partners to have a variety of different growing methods and target audiences. The CBD brands, there's 2 of our own brands there, Libertine, and 2 white label CBD brands, Oho and Blue N as well. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you. Judges?
Hey, Mike, I have a question for you. Let's talk about cost in making the inputs there, the flower inputs. So obviously, consumers are going to look towards costs as things get driven down. Those rolls that you make there, manufacturing scale. Maybe you can speak to that for a minute.
Yeah, the sticks themselves, the empty sticks. Sorry, if you're talking about the empty sticks.
Yes, okay. Yeah, the empty sticks. Yeah, thanks.
We've actually got 3 sources of production at the moment. We've got China, US, and India. Currently, we're using the sticks made in India. They're extremely cost effective. The margins on our sticks are, I could tell you in a later discussion, are pretty mind-blowing. Our business model is obviously on the sale of the sticks. Whilst we do lease filling equipment, we do sell devices, it's actually the markup on the sticks is where the majority of our profit margin lay.
Great, thanks.
Very interesting product. Can you talk about the filling side and how that's done? Is this like a knock box? Do you have equipment? Is there IP around that? Or
well, there's a lot actually. I can't show you very well on the screen here, but basically I developed a machine which fills 500 sticks in 2 minutes. It's dissimilar technology to a knock box in the fact that we spoke with Fiorello and they couldn't help us because they only work with cones. I developed a technology where we can fill a parallel walled stick. We have 500 of these sticks nested together. It's a dual part process which finishes with a tamping process that actually creates a porous plug inside the stick. The porous plug prevents the cannabis falling out, but it also adds a known amount of draw resistance to the product. We've got IP in the sticks, the filling of the sticks and that porous plug, also the filling equipment as well. Also, we have IP in the device and we've filed for that internationally and domestically. We've had our international patent published already.
And you said you're leasing the equipment, the filling equipment, or you're selling that?
We lease the equipment to our flower partners, sometimes for a nominal fee, and that's just so we can, if we need to update the equipment, that we can switch it out without them having the burden of an additional cost.
Mike, this is Josh Kincaid. These are really hot in Europe and Asia. I think the US is a little bit slow to market. Even in Canada, they're really popular. But what I want to know about is the future integration with hardware, software. Do you foresee the ability to have, you said controlled dosing, but I want to know about accurate dosing as well as data aggregation. Are you able to have an app and have software? So if I hit something that you have and I want to know, oh, what's that Mike had? I can go on the app and say, okay, this is what Mike was smoking and I want to download that and smoke it next time. Is there an ability to have data aggregation and accurate dosing down the road?
Thanks, Josh. Great question. Yeah, there absolutely is. In my previous life, I actually designed apps for Disney. So I've got a lot of experience in the data and digital side of it. We didn't want to integrate a new product, which is a new ritual, with a new technology on top of that, because we thought it would be just overly confusing to the consumer. Also, there's an awful lot of turbulence in the app store at the moment with vape-related apps, as many of us will know. Some people will have felt the pain. So we're very thankful that we didn't develop an app for this platform at the moment, but it's certainly in our development pipeline.
One last quick question. Okay. Well, there are plenty of questions on the chat, Mike, so definitely take a look there. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks guys, I appreciate it.
Up next, we have Nick Easley, Nick's CEO of 3C Consulting, and while we're pulling him up, Mike, I just wanted to mention to you that one of the last due diligence trips we did, Poseidon, was our team was down in LA checking out a bunch of different retail stores, and we were in the artistry where there was a very nice display of home mirrors. So I thought that was very notable, as that was one of my last trips.
Thank you very much. Thank you, bye-bye.
So we have Nick Easley, I believe, is next, unless there's a change of order here.
Nick, you're unmuted and ready to go.
Super duper. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Nice to actually be on the other side of the equation. Also manage a few venture funds in the space with Multiverse. 3C is originally kind of my baby. I accidentally started years ago, and I'll get my screen up, and Brad said to wear a collared shirt. So I'm wearing my undercover cowboy uniform up here in the high country of Colorado. After 10 years in suits, it's kind of nice to take a little bit of break and get real and focus on the company here. So I'll get my my screen up for everybody. Here we go. So just to run through a little bit, and I'll just kind of keep it open here. 3C, I originally started here in Colorado with another company called 3E, Easily Environmental Engineering. That was back before cannabis was a cool thing to say. And most of you know me from like being in the industry now for well over a decade. And 3C is a company that when I started it with 3E was really helping the medical cannabis caregivers transition to the first legal compliant cannabis industry here in the United States that we've seen. Through that, I learned a lot of issues that operators have transitioning from that illicit side of the industry to the legal industry. And my main goals with my background, I was an airborne cryptolinguist for the United States Air Force, speak a variety of languages, but originally from farm country in Wisconsin. And I really love this plant. I'm a disabled vet, and I just couldn't help to be, inquisitive of where was my medicine coming from initially here in Colorado with those caregivers. And when I went to a basement and saw all the tie-dye nutrients and pictures of girls on the wall, scantily clothed, and all these like beautiful little plants in this filthy room, I was like, this isn't where medicine should come from. So I started to tap into my own.
Just so you know, your presentation is not open yet.
Well, that's wonderful. Thanks for that. It says sharing screen here, but
yeah, we see it, but it's still like not in like presentation mode.
That's all right. Do things a little non-traditionally.
Okay.
So like I said, thanks so much for the heads up there. But yeah, that most people like master grower didn't mean master business person. So navigating compliance and license applications, I got a lot bigger to help those operators in Colorado 2007 through 9. Through that, got to pick up some equity positions and really learn what states do when they transition from a quasi-legal to a legal to a full adult use market. So now over this last few years, now well over a decade, 3C's now worked in 34 of the states. We've worked in more states with investors and then worked in 17 countries and holding equity positions in well over 160 companies. 3C itself is a single member LLC that has holdings companies above that just to limit liability. But then through that, we're able to actually sometimes take equity positions in clients in really long-term positions with our companies and clients. Now, I didn't want to just start a company. This was actually accidental years ago and have now, very much scaled into this industry, but it was really to make the industry more environmental, responsible, just for actually using agricultural principles to produce an agricultural commodity. Through that, we have this patchwork of US states where we have worked in every single state since its inception. So with our knowledge management system, we know what's happening, where it's happening, and when, and through that, able to make creative marketing approaches and help businesses, especially now with social equity programs, to really create bona fide lasting companies and deep confidentiality agreements with our clients. But many of the multi-state operators were clients, back in the day, some of which we have positions, and we get to watch and nurture them grow. So in actually contemplating a raise for the first time in 3C's history, as we just always cash flow the business and can continue to. But as we're growing, looking for some more strategic partners in running larger scale consulting companies, because when you think about our revenue model, we're a relationship-based firm. When we do, any sort of, when I put my investor hat on, like a consulting company is just revenues. But when it comes to the equity positions, the holdings, and what we get to know, building a larger relationship with some strategic capital, helping other investors with their investment strategies, vetting investments, and also when we see unique advantages come up, it's not just looking for a minority shareholder position here. Easily can continue to justify cash flowing the business as we grow. But when you think about what we've done over this last well over 10 years with myself at the helm, having worked in all of these markets and had multiple offices, we've really gotten to see the industry in a way that most people don't get to get under the hood with companies, or when there's a problem with applications, or when Illinois is popping up and putting in 91 dispensary applications for clients, many of which taking equity positions or having referrals and different commission agreements coming forth. It's allowed us to see things differently. So, I've got a large team, most of us in the United States. I've got some staff in South America, some staff in Europe. Navigating those compliance issues of working in these new countries has been great, but having 8 different languages as part of our skill sets as our team, not just from my background as a linguist, but always looking for that diverse kind of group to help. And when I think about what the raise is here, it's essentially I'm doing a $2 million convertible note. This would actually be able to come into 3CR holdings companies and portfolio companies, past, present, and future. And as the typical use of funds, marketing and branding, and really entrenching to get through this next 18 to 24 months, even though things are stable and fine and actually growing well, but to really entrench ourselves as a large term kind of exit for a consulting company acquisition, or just continue to build our equity portfolio. But be it consulting services, the investment management services, or starting these new companies in the new states. Just finished Dutch applications for coffee house production just this last week. Today I already worked in Massachusetts, in Michigan, in Maine, in Arizona licenses, California delivery company worked this morning, and then also dealing with some Peruvian financial structuring here this afternoon. So you never know what we get into, but I'd love to have some strategic capital and direction and outside kind of services to help us grow with this capital raise if we choose to do so.
Great. Thank you, Nick. Judges, let's just see if anyone I haven't heard from a little bit. Frank or Daniel? Either one of you like to kick it off?
Yeah, I would. I'm curious to know what is, you had mentioned that you have a long-term, you kind of have long-term investments. I know VCs typically have that time frame that they want to kick companies off the books, right? Or get the exit. How long is the typical hold for you?
From our venture fund and what we do, or are you mentioning with 3C and our equity positions?
Yeah, with 3C and your equity positions. Is there a time frame, or is this you just let them run it?
Most of our funds, we do like 7-year exit, but when it comes to our portfolio companies, I really have a short, medium, and long-term approach with some of these positions. Some I know are going to cash flow and have nice exits when it comes to data companies or companies with more IT kind of platforms. Others, with many of our international positions, we know that those aren't going to have really good cash flows, balance sheets, and EBITDAs for the next 2 to 3 years, but the long-term positions will be phenomenal. So I like to balance our equity holdings based on that strategy. Some quick cash flows, like I sell a Danish company for 5.4 million euros, have various equity positions within that, some nice exits for, you know, the internal shareholders that we use that for. But it's definitely balanced based on the portfolio company.
What are the terms on the convertible note? And, you know, what do you see in terms of happening kind of down the road in terms of path of growth for you guys?
So, you know, that convertible note, I'm open to different options depending on what the investor would need for that, because there's just capital and I can do that all day. I mean, I was dealing with my London investment group earlier today, and I could go to that, but I'm really looking for strategic capital. So on a convertible note basis, those terms I'm flexible on. 3C's done well over 12 million in revenue over the last 5 years just alone. Equity positions on that, depending on who you're using for your independent valuations, could be well over 100 million domestically and about 200 million internationally. So that convertible note, I'd be open to structuring that to where essentially if payments aren't met, that's an equity grant, you know, with board seat strategic directions in the larger holdings company. But mostly I would be doing that at like a $10 million valuation for that 2 million convertible note with some additional options and warrants if desired.
Nick, in the convertible note, when it does convert, will there also go interest in these 150 or 100 companies you have equity interest in, or the firm does?
Yes, ma'am. So, you know, I started my company selling my my pickup truck about in 2009 to make payroll and become bona fide. But yeah, of those equity positions that I've coalesced over the years, I wouldn't be setting some sort of like timeline where all previous ones are mine and you get to be in part of, you know, just the future. So this is all past, present, and future equities that would be on the table for us that we acquire. But that would be through a holdings, you know, as you know, Sheri, unless I made a specific SPV, like a special purpose vehicle for each portfolio company or client that we get equity in. When it comes to, let's say, the Bureau of Cannabis Control in California, like owning 15% of a company there, I might hold that equity and it goes to a holdings company for how like profit sharing and distributions would happen. But if I were to add you, let's say at a 20% position of that, you then get the joy of doing all the background checks every 6 months, fingerprints in multiple markets. Hence why I have a live scanner on call when it comes for those sorts of positions. So that would be in all past, present, and future.
Nick, can you just unshare your screen real quick?
Yes,
and then
yes.
we have time for one last quick one.
If I can ask a follow on, like where is that portfolio valued that you have? And then how do you plan on funding successive rounds in that?
You know, so current equity positions here, I'm setting like the value of the consulting company lower based on revenue streams. Even, you know, operating 50% margin, it's still the cash flow of the business. Domestically, I would state that depending on your valuation, independent auditors, I'd say that's around 100 million. Currently in domestically and internationally, about 200 million. Many of these positions, though, just based on current times, I'm not looking for liquidity events based on current market trends or any sorts of IPOs. For those portfolio companies currently, that'd be a death sentence. So, you know, currently based on domestic and international, I'd say well over 300. COVID times, you could easily cut that in half to 150 if you wanted. For 3C, for successive rounds, I'm pretty comfortable with where we at. I just know that where we could go with some gas. It's like what I do with all of our investments with portfolio companies and clients. I just like to ramp this up a little bit faster, make it a little bit more bona fide and professional in a few of these different markets where we have massive work to do. But instead of taking all of these minority equity positions and growing organically, I think we can grow a lot faster. While many companies are starting to fail in the space, we're thriving and have been for years. I just want to get bigger faster to be able to help this investment network get more equity positions in some very unique and sometimes exclusive portfolio company opportunities. And also, you know, to be a homie, help you with your side too. We have a breadth that's bigger than anyone I know when it comes to our network for how long we've been around. And I'd love to be able to help leverage some wisdom and praxis with some other investment opportunities and funds as well.
Thank you, Nick.
Super.
Great. Okay, so up next we have Nicole Wicker, CEO and founder of Altopa. We're doing great here. This is, I think we're all being very mindful of time and sharing, and so thank you for everyone.
Okay, hold on just a second, please.
Yep.
And Actually, while I'm getting my screen set up, I'll go ahead and start. I'm Nicole Wicker, the CEO of Altoba. And we all know that consistency is a challenge in the cannabis industry. And we've all kind of accepted that cannabis is not consistent. Even the states have accepted this because I just realized I'm not on video. Okay, hi. Even the states have accepted that to pass state requirements, cannabinoids must be plus or minus 10 to 15% in deviation, which means that it's acceptable to have a 30% deviation in your cannabinoids, which is really not acceptable. And let's talk about terpenes. We all know the importance of terpenes, but states don't even test for terpenes, and labels don't even have the terpene content on it. So most of the times you do not know what terpenes are in your cannabis product. So imagine if there was a way to control the level of THC in every single product that was created, every single cannabis product, and people could start titrating the amounts of THC. Imagine if you could add terpenes to your cannabis product, such as limonene and pinene in the morning to help you wake up and energize you, and linalool and myrcene at night to help you sleep through the night. And one of you earlier was saying it would be great if, let's say I found something for pain and I flew to California and I could walk up to a dispensary, give him the formulation, and he could create it exactly the same every time. That would be amazing, right? Well, that is what we've created. What we've created is the world's first electronic apothecary. It's the first device that creates personalized pharma-grade cannabis products with precision on demand. Similar to an inkjet printer, the O-Blend holds canisters that are filled with cannabinoids such as THC, CBC, CBN, CBG, and essential oils such as isolated terpenes. The O-Blend dispenses each ingredient directly into a variety of containers such as vape cartridges or tincture bottles or culinary oil or even personal lubricant. Every time you see this O on a product, it means that the O-Blend has created this product, guaranteed to have 4 things. It's safe, the ingredients are safe, they've been tested by Altoba before they were put into our canisters. It's personalized. This product has been created just for you. It's consistent and it's precise. Well, what does that mean? The O-Blend is blending cannabinoids and terpenoids within pharmaceutical precision. I mentioned the state standards of 20 to 30% deviation. Our cannabinoids are plus or minus less than 1%, and our terpenes are less than 3%. And we are talking about microliter amounts, which is amazing. The second part of the O-Blend is the desktop app. This is where users come in and they can find recipes, they can customize them, and then they can create personalized pharma-grade blends on demand. It's loaded with formulations from experts, such as Dr. Ethan Russo. You can search for medical ailment. You can search for the highest rated blends. You can save your favorite recipes. You can share them with your friends. You can see what other people are using that have similar ailments that you have. So you've got your device, you've got your desktop app. The third component is the data. Every time somebody interacts with the O-Blend, we are collecting that data to enhance our users' experience. We can see the clusters of ingredients that are working for different medical conditions. We can sort by patient demographics. We can see the optimal delivery modalities and dosing protocols. The O-Blend is powered by a technology called microfluidics. Microfluidics made a lot of advancements in the biotech industry over the last 2 decades. No company has yet to bring that in the hands of consumers. So we've been very aggressive building a patent portfolio. We've been granted 22 patents. We've spanned those across 33 countries. We have been issued our key utility patent. We have several more in the works. We just filed another provisional. We have continuations. We have divisionals. It's a big opportunity that goes beyond cannabis.
Thank you, Nicole. Just so you know, you're just past 5 minutes.
Oh my, okay, our team is awesome. Beta launch, we've completed. O-Blend's created over 100 products. Favorite ones were those by Ethan Russo, which is one of our partners. Commercialization, we're raising money for our commercial launch. This is when we partner with a cannabis licensed company. They add the cannabinoids. We don't touch the plant. We are just a platform. And then you've got your users, your cannabis license, your customers. We have signed letters of intent with all sorts of great people like Bear to Farm Mouth, which is a GPO in the medical cannabis industry. Revolutionary Clinics owned by Ryan Anson, MJ Housing, and a lot more. But let me just get to that.
Yeah.
So it's hard to present all this in 5 minutes for our company because there's a lot to it.
I know what you mean.
So Altopa is seeking a $3 million Series A financing. For smaller investors, we have $300,000 remaining in our $1 million convertible note. You see the terms. We're post-revenue. We have patents. We have lab validated results, and we're an awesome team. So we're ready to go. We're ready to commercialize, and we need funding to do so.
Great. Thank you, Nicole. Let's jump into the judges. How about John? Haven't heard from you in a little bit.
You mentioned that you're working with Ethan Russo, or Ethan Russo is a partner, like is he providing you with formulations and research? The reason I'm asking in part is my wife recently interviewed Ethan Russo online, and they actually have quite an interesting relationship. So I'm just trying to understand in what context you guys operate.
So we know Ethan pretty well. We live on the same little island with him, Vashon. And when he was working with ICCI, he gave us proprietary formulations for treating daytime pain, nighttime pain, anxiety, and insomnia, both in just the hemp CBD form and with cannabinoid sourced ingredients. And we have an agreement signed with him that says he can provide us with formulations, but that's as far as we've gotten.
I see. So he can't provide you with formulations, but is he a shareholder or director in the company? Yeah. Okay. Anyways, would you mind sending me your deck, please?
Absolutely. Not at all.
Thank you. Good presentation.
Thank you.
Hey, Nicole, back to the product for a second. You say you're in production, so I just wanted to get an idea of where you are now in scale. Have you built a few of the machines, and how much product have you moved? Also, just wanted to ask you about the testing as well, because I think third-party testing would validate. Maybe just talk to that too. Thank you.
Okay, when I say we were in production, we just completed our beta launch. And the purpose was to test the O-Blends and the platform. And we actually send out FDA validated questionnaires to patients. So we wanted to test that before we're ready to deploy O-Blends with a cannabis license holder. We've been creating hemp CBD plus isolated terpene products for these patients. We've sold over 100 blends. And our model used to be a D2C, but we have changed it. And we've realized you don't need an O-Blend to create these products. You just need the platform. And we're recurring revenue. We generate our revenue from licensing the canisters. They're filled with ingredients. So We are not building a lot of O-blends. One of my slides that I didn't get to showed how much an O-blend could produce. So one O-blend can create 100 blends a day, over 100 blends a day. And if you think about having a few of those in a cannabis license holder, and then you have all these healthcare providers, you know, recommending different formulations for their patients, you don't need to build a lot of O-blends. So we are in the process of building O-blends for our commercial launch, but we're not planning on building that many. 5.
Hi, Nicole. It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you too, Sheri.
How many, what I understand is you have 2 revenue streams or 3, perhaps. You actually make the capsules, and if I remember correctly, the capsules collect data. Is that not correct?
No.
Okay. Well, you have the capsules, you have medical, and you have
So, well, okay, so when you say capsules, we have been creating hemp CBD formulations and selling.
I'm sorry, I meant canisters. I was using canister and capsule interchangeable.
So we are selling empty canisters to license holders. And if you look at Ryan Anson, which I would love to go back to that slide if I could.
We're at the time, so you just.
Okay, so Ryan Anson has 300 consumers a day that walk in. And if you assume that we create a product for one of them, we have a model to where we get approximately $10 per blend. Ryan has 3 stores, plus he sells to 17 other stores in Massachusetts. And if you do the numbers, they're just crazy if you only charge $10 for a customized, consistent blend. That's our model. And then yes, we're collecting the data. We would like to help other people, including healthcare providers, see what's working for other healthcare providers. So we plan on sharing that data with other consumers and make cannabis medicine accessible and safe for people.
Thank you, Nicole. Very much, very interesting for sure. Just know there are a bunch of questions, Q&A, so check those out. And up next, our final speaker is Zach Sakar, the CEO of Polar Extracts.
Right. Thanks, Morgan. This is cool today. My favorite part of this industry is definitely the medical side, where we actually get to really help people. So this has been a really cool conference so far. I would like to speak about the technology and infrastructure side of our industry. And again, I'm Zach Sakar, co-founder of Polar Extracts. As a lot of you might notice, and actually as Cheech brought up, flower is kind of old school now, right? If you look at data from just the 2 years since California went adult use legal, less than 50% of consumer spending is in the combination of pre-rolls and loose flower, which means more than half of spending is actually on mainly vapes and edibles, but in the medical markets, that's also tinctures and topicals. And that's particularly interesting because those things, you can't just kind of get them right out of the green plant that our farmers are growing. You've got to do some concentration and some extraction first. And that's what we do. For anyone who's not sure exactly where it all kind of breaks down, you grow the plant and then you've got to do some chemical processing before it gets into the manufacture and distribution. And by extraction, I really just mean taking the desired compounds or molecules out of the overall plant biomass. There's a lot of stuff you can do when you're processing cannabinoids and terpenes and stuff you want out of an interesting plant like cannabis. But no matter what you do, you've got to start by getting it out of the plant. So what we're seeing is that since the fastest growing and already more than excuse me, half of the market is in concentrate derived products, getting to reliability and consistency of those concentrate supplies at scale is what all of the companies of the future are going to need. So what we're building at Polar Extracts is exactly what we think the industry needs next. In order to continue to scale, the infrastructure needs to scale accordingly. And specialized large-scale chemical processing is going to be a critical component of that. As I said, I'm Zach Saker. I'm CEO of Polar Extracts. My co-founder and I are both serial entrepreneurs. I have a background in sales management and community building. And Sean Kelly is my co-founder. He's a PhD rocket scientist with a lot of experience in prototyping, mechanical engineering, and specialized experience in cryogenic ethanol extraction, which is our preferred method. We like it because we believe we can get, and we've shown we can get very high quality, very high efficiency and healthy extracts from plant sources, so long as we're using cultivators who are also at high quality. And efficiency is important. If you've ever tried to do anything in manufacturing, you know that it is very capital intensive. So the real question for an investor conference like this is, how do we grow a company like this without requiring tens of millions of dollars to build giant factories? We think that the bottleneck in much of the cannabis industry is this processing infrastructure, but for us, the real constraint is access to capital. What we're doing is building mobile extraction labs that we can use to tackle some of the logistics, distribution, and scalability concerns of building processing technology and factories. They're mobile units, which are built in shipping containers or trailers. They can be manufactured in a central location, but they can actually do their processing in a decentralized fashion, locating either directly on site at a farm or in a ideal geographic location. This also cuts down on some of the other costs like real estate. And the technology, to the extent that it is safe to put our IP somewhat outside of our hands, allows us to explore some licensing opportunities. I can very briefly talk about the economics, but I'd rather get to questions. But essentially what I'm most happy about is here in the bottom left corner is, due to some customer development I've been working on the last 5 or 6 weeks, we're prioritizing just those companies, mainly hemp farms in Southern California, who are willing to work with us on contract processing or toll processing agreements. And what that means is that we don't have to outlay any capital for biomass. So our inventory costs go essentially to zero, and we can just spend our money on people and machinery. So to do that, we're trying to raise right now $800,000 in this seed round on a safe. And as I said, it's primarily towards the manufacturing equipment. And to further develop our IP portfolio, we want to be actively doing the processing rather than just selling machines, because we know we're going to only get better at doing it by doing it at scale. And I think that's all I'd like to talk about in my presentation, but I'd be very interested in hearing some questions.
Perfect timing. Thank you, Zach. Yeah, why don't we, Joyce, being on the farm, for mobile extraction, how about you want to kick us off?
Yeah, definitely. So what does the licensing look like? Is it you put like a type 6 processing or a transport license? Obviously we're seeing a lot of farms coming online. So and the processing, a lot of them don't have on-site processing. So the thought of like driving that 50 miles, 100 miles elsewhere, it obviously is really cumbersome. So I think there's a lot of scale to this, particularly in the next sort of 1 to 3 years as folks are starting to build other things. As an example, we do not have a processing facility on site, which is going to be a problem. So this is definitely, I think a great area, but I'm interested, how do you grab a license for this?
Yeah, sure. I agree. It's probably, we hope at least, and we're going to advocate that it does become more normal over the next few years. Right now, we're actually mostly working just with the hemp CBD companies because we're also still figuring out exactly how this is going to work on a licensing and regulatory standpoint in the THC touching market. But I would definitely be interested in talking to you more and seeing if we can figure that out together.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
All right.
I guess I had a follow-up question about the mobile compliance. So is it simply a licensing play, or are you planning on trying to figure out how to remain in compliance as you move into emerging markets or even existing markets? How's that going to work out?
With compliance in the THC side?
Correct.
Yeah, that, like I said, that's still somewhat in flux, and we're figuring it out. We've been getting conflicting answers from most people we're talking to, so I think everything is still changing pretty rapidly. This includes, you know, environmental and fire safety and distribution, and as well as, you know, cannabis licensing. So it's still pretty up in the air, but we're working on it, and we're planning to employ some consultants as well.
Hey, Zach, so I may have missed it, but unit economics on the actual pods, however you're calling them, what's the cost to build one of them out, and what's the throughput or revenue per month, year, however you define that?
Sure. We're expecting to average out about $400,000 to build the shipping container size. And throughput will be roughly 500 kilograms of extract produced a month or more.
And you're charging per kilogram extracted? How does the tolling model work for you in terms of price?
Yeah, that it's usually, yeah, it's usually just based on a percentage of however much is produced. We'll negotiate a cut with the farm if they want to retain a certain amount. We're also largely doing that model here at the very beginning for capital constraint reasons, but we expect to be also in the business of purchasing biomass and wholesaling extract to manufacturers as kind of a longer term business model.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can you talk about?
Yeah, go ahead, Daniel.
Can you talk about sales and, you know, where you are in terms of contracts or licensing partners currently? You know, what your plan is for scaling that, and just maybe I missed it, but like, is this currently legal in any U.S. jurisdictions, like to do the mobile extraction? Are there other companies doing it?
We're legal in the hemp CBD side, and we're building some machinery right now for some Southern California-based farms. As far as THC side, I've gotten different answers from different lawyers, so I'm not sure I want to say in a public forum that I agree with one or the other. But yeah, we are installing some processing on hemp farms in the Bakersfield area, north of Los Angeles right now, for 2 different companies.
Great. Thank you, Zach.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is our 8 presenters. So what will happen now is, for all the audience, you will be getting a chance to vote. While you're doing that, I just saw that popped up, but I'm going to ask each of the judges which is their pick, and just a quick 20-second, what is their thought on that? So Daniel, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I'd say my pick was Omura. I just thought it was a very interesting kind of novel product, dosing, and I think the light cannabis experience, you know, is kind of what's going to take this stuff mainstream. So it's important to see these products develop.
Great. Dr. David Cunic, what's your vote?
So my vote would be for C3 Consulting, mainly due to the diversity of what they're doing and the fact that they have many tentacles and many different arenas through not only domestically and internationally, which is really attractive to my group of investors as well as myself.
Cool. Evan, you're next.
Yeah, it's a tough, fast decision you're looking for here. A lot of great companies, a lot of great success, and you know, just in terms of how I look at the world and really focusing on early stage brand and you know, accelerated growth. I really like the story behind Element Apothic. I think there's a lot there, and it's something that can be developed. You know, obviously being super early, it's a challenge, but that's what's fun about this space.
Cool. Okay. And then up next, we have Frank.
Yeah, so again, a lot of great companies here. Initially, you know, to be fair, I really like the Mura. I think that that's actually a great company. However, I also believe in always backing the jockey, and you know, I think that 3C is a really, really solid situation to get behind. So yeah, I like 3C a lot.
Okay. Thank you, Frank. John.
Sorry, having issues with my computer today. I like Theracann. I look at the technology space and I ask myself the question, why does Facebook give away free access? Why do we have free email accounts? Because data is the new currency. And a company like Theracann is well positioned to collect the kind of data that could be worth a lot over and above the services they provide. Having said that, I also like C3. So, and I'm biased towards what Nicole has. So, I'll go with Theracann, but I mean, look, there's some really good companies here, and I wish them all well. Some really good companies here. Thank you.
Thanks. Josh.
So although Levendura and who else? Polar and Oblend all scored higher than Omura. I'm going to pick Omura because I think that they have the fastest ability to gain market share with the quickest exit strategy.
Next is Joyce.
Awesome. Some really strong companies. Honestly, this is really tough. For me, I'm going to say Neva Labs, mainly because there's not as many labs at the market right now, and it's an area where we sort of need to experience growth and innovation. There's a lot of gaps in that industry, so I think that there's areas to fill, and there's a robust current market as well as a need to kind of work on the research side. We obviously need a lot more lean in on the research side, but I also felt that PayQuick and C3 and Polar were super strong. I'm a fan of Omura, so I almost kind of have to not vote there because I really like the hardware. So I'm gonna sit that one out on voting for them. But yeah, I'm gonna go with Neva.
Cool. Okay, and Sheri.
I'm talking and unmuted. That hasn't happened a lot. I really echo everybody else's comments. Altopa is a company I know well and have a bias towards Omura. I work with a big competitor, 3C. I have landed on because my first and second and third choices all are actually my first, but I'm sort of precluded, I feel, from Omura and Altopa, so it goes to 3C Consulting.
Okay, thank you, Sheri. Skip.
Thanks, everybody. Yeah, great companies and some hard choices. Full disclosure, I have a relationship with 3C, so I'm not able to vote there. I liked Oblend. I thought that, I'm in Silicon Valley, and I think the land of custom, right? The ability to customize specific blends, maybe even continue to alter those and refine those so that everybody can get the perfect blend. I think that's magical. So I would go with Oblend.
All right. Well, thank you, judges, for your votes. And now I am waiting for the results of the audience poll. There we go. Okay, so the winner from the audience is the Levendura Biotechnology. Congratulations to Alex and team for the audience poll, and then from the judges, it was 3C. So congratulations to Nick from the judges side of things. I agree, as a host, it was very interesting to hear quite a diverse discussion here, and we love this industry, so it's always interesting to see what's going on. And just thank you everybody for today. So that's the scoop for my end of things. And now I'm going to hand it back to Jim to take us on home. So thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Morgan. That was fantastic. And thanks to all the judges for your time today and for all of the companies who presented. Wonderful job. So we'd like to remind the audience, investor judges, that you can review the investor pitch competition presentations seen today on the cannabisinvestingforum.com website, in addition to an email, so you may contact the presenter. Now, as far as the event at 3, and we'll open up and try to open it up maybe a little bit earlier, you should have all received an email with the link, and we'll also be putting it in the chat to get to the reception. And please make sure to mark your calendars for our next event, the Investor Pitch Competition on August 20th, and Hemp Opportunity Speaker and Investor Pitch Competition on September 4th. We are seeking companies that would like to present, investor judges, and media and marketing partners. You can find the information on the website, cannabisinvestingforum.com, and register on Eventbrite. And now for the networking. So as a reminder, you'll need to register with the new Zoom meeting link to access the networking rooms. So it's posted in the chat, and the link can also be found in the agenda page on the cannabisinvestingforum.com website. Huge thank you to Brad Turner and the entire team of the Cannabis Investing Forum for this truly great day. Look forward to seeing you all in the Zoom room.